Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Kyuubi is sealed inside of Naruto. Jiraiya, fearing for his safety, adopts the boy and raises him among the toads. Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Jiraiya of the Sand gazed out over the destruction bordering the walls of his beloved home village. His spiky white hair moved with the ominous breeze around him, his horned forehead protector, engraved with the kanji for oil, seemed to glow as the moon's light reflected against it. He took a deep breath and wiped his with his sleeves, as if he had been crying, but no tears were present on his face. He turned around to look at the ritual altar, where his god's son lay sleeping, unaware of the seal on his stomach or the corpses of his parents, locked in a silent embrace, hovering over him as if protecting him. Jiraiya had gotten there just as Kushina Uzumaki erected the barrier that would keep the beast from escaping while her husband, the Yondaime Hokage Minato Namikaze, sealed it within their newborn son. A beast which was said to topple mountains and create tsunamis with but a swipe of its tail. The nine-tailed demon fox. Jiraiya looked up at the moon again, not looking as his sensei and several other ninjas made the scene. Here is in Tsunade, the Sandaime Hokage, with a heavy heart and the ghost of tears in his eyes, picked up the child, wrapping him in a blanket and walked slowly to Jiraiya, his armor and helmet still damaged heavily from the battle. "Jiraiya," said Tsunade quietly, the toad sage not looking at him or giving any indication that he'd heard. "I know this is hard for you, but I need you to come to the tower with me. We must discuss what is to be done about the village. My Anbu will take care of Minato and Kushina." Jiraiya was about to respond to Tsunade when out of the corner of his eye he saw a flash and the sound of many shuriken flying through the air rang in his ears. "Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Needle Jizo." Jiraiya practically screamed as he grabbed his sensei and the infant, his spiky white hair bursting from its ponytail and wrapping around the three of them protectively. The blanket of hair petrified into the density of steel. Just as his hair enclosed around them, thousands of shuriken came flying from the trees, embedding themselves in the shell of needle-like hair. Many of the shuriken passed over them and struck down surrounding Anbu. As soon as the shuriken clones vanished in a puff of smoke, Jiraiya released Tsunade and Minato's child. "I'll meet you at the tower," said Jiraiya. Tsunade nodded and sped off in the direction of the village, followed closely by his security detail. Jiraiya spotted the attacker in the trees, moving quickly to intercept the third. Jiraiya got there first however and blocked the assailant's path. Jiraiya glared at his foe, taking a wide stance. "Do not get in my way, sage," said the attacker, his face hidden by a black hood and a white mask with a black flame pattern and a single hole for his eye. Jiraiya glared back at his opponent. He could sense a massive killing intent from this man. This was no normal shinobi. "You're the one behind all of this, I presume," he said, not moving from his stance. "The area reeks of your fighting aura. You fought Minato." "Yes, and I nearly had him too," replied the masked man. "Now move, so I may retrieve what belongs to me. If you mean the fox, you can forget it. Unfortunately, I cannot forget it. If you insist on dying, I will accommodate you. Then let's get this over with." Jiraiya shouted, his hands flying into the hand seals for snake, ram, monkey, boar, horse and tiger. "Katen. Enden." A burst of fire flew from the sage's lips and struck the masked man. Jiraiya nearly dropped his stance in surprise as he saw his enemy make no attempt to avoid it. He gasped and jumped out of the way as a kunai nearly sliced through his neck. He looked at his enemy and saw a flash of red from the hole in his mask. A Sharingan. He thought to himself. So his enemy was in a Uchiha. Things had just gotten more interesting for the toad sage. Jiraiya landed about 10 feet away and took his stance again. The masked man clutched his chest and growled in pain and irritation. "That damned fourth Hokage," he said, looking at the corpse of his fallen enemy. "His seal is disrupting my chakra. That move nearly took it all out of me. So you avoided my attack with a jutsu?" Jiraiya said, catching the man's attention. The man stood at his full height. "It seems that I will have to come back later," the man spat with venom. "I will return, sage. And with that, I must bid you farewell." His Sharingan lit up and his entire body seemed to shrink into the hole as if being sucked in. His body and the air around it distorted in a spiral pattern. It swirled around the hole until nothing was left but the Sharingan eye and it too vanished seconds later. Jiraiya spit on the ground and looked at his dead student, a content smile etched onto Minato's face. Jiraiya didn't know exactly what Minato had gone through to battle that man, but it had Jiraiya scared, not for himself, but for Minato's son. He put his hand in the ram seal and vanished in a puff of smoke and leaves. "I know what I saw, sensei," said Jiraiya. "He definitely had a Sharingan eye. And we both know that the Uchiha were absolutely no help in repelling that damned fox. Where the hell were they?" Jiraiya sat on the windowsill of the Hokage's office, his back against the frame. Tsunade was smoking his pipe from his spot behind Minato's desk. "What evidence do we have that the Uchiha clan had anything to do with the attack?" Madara Uchiha could control it with his Sharingan. I think this places them as our prime suspects. Sarutobi sat silently for a time, puffing absently on his pipe. His eyes scanned slowly across the room to the basket at his side, the small infant laying quietly, staring up at the former Hokage with big sea blue orbs. He looked just like his father, aside from the whisker marks on his cheeks. I will discuss what you found with the council, he said, putting out his pipe for the sake of the baby's lungs. But for now, with the crisis averted, we should discuss what to do with Minato's son. Naruto, said Jiraiya quietly, gazing down at the baby. What? Minato and Kushina named him Naruto. Isn't that the name of the protagonist of your first book? Tale of the Gutsy Ninja. I quite enjoyed it. Yeah, Jiraiya chuckled warmly. Too bad it didn't sell, but Minato seemed to love it. I have to say I liked your new book even more. Sarutobi pulled out his copy of Icha Icha Paradise and tapped the cover. It would make a killing as a series. You keep a copy of it in your desk? Asked Jiraiya with a lewd smirk. The third Hokage coughed and tried to hide the faint redness in his cheeks. Back to the matter at hand, he growled threateningly, eliciting a laugh from the pervy sage. I'll be keeping young Naruto here at the hospital until he is fit enough to live in the orphanage. The orphanage? Asked Jiraiya. Are you nuts? People will surely target him in there. People are morons, you know how things are for a Jinchuriki. Exactly, said a new voice, deep and cold, slow and calculating. Which is why I must object to your idea, Sarutobi. Jiraiya's face darkened, as did the thirds when they spied Shimura Danzo, the bandaged and crippled war hawk stepping across the room with his cane in hand. What do you want, you old fart? Asked Jiraiya, but Sarutobi held up a hand to silence him. What I want is to use the child for what he is meant to be, said Danzo coldly, staring down at Naruto with a hungry gleam in his eye. He is not a weapon, Shimura, said Sarutobi hotly. He is an infant and a citizen of Konoha. He is a monster, spat Danzo. And everyone knows it. People are whispering Hiruzen. The rumors are spreading that this thing is the nine-tailed fox in human form. They are afraid. Imagine who else we could scare with this kind of power. Iwagakure. Kumagakure. The possibilities will not happen, said Sarutobi, taking a paper from his personal stationery and scribbling on it, marking his signature on the bottom furiously before stamping it with his personal seal. From this moment on, the knowledge of Naruto's condition is an S-rank secret. Anyone, be they shinobi or citizen, to discuss it outside of my office and in Naruto-kun's presence will be executed. Do I make myself clear? You are making a mistake, Saru, hissed Danzo. Sarutobi shot out of his chair, the killing intent washing off of him making Naruto cry, Jiraiya jump and Danzo sweat. If you question my authority as Hokage, the mistake will be yours to pay for, growled Sarutobi. You are not Hokage anymore. As of this moment, said Hiruzen with a deep-laced venom. I am enacting my authority as former Hokage of the Leaf. I will request that the Citizen Council allow me to return to my position. Now get out of this office. Danzo stared at Hiruzen for what seemed like, to Jiraiya, an eternity. The only sound was Naruto's wails reverberating against the walls. Danzo shot a look at the baby and sneered. Shut that creature up, he said, backing out of the office and slamming the door behind him. Sarutobi collapsed into his chair and heaved a sigh. He went to pick up Naruto, but saw the baby was already being held and consoled, albeit unsuccessfully, by Jiraiya. I never expected you to be the fatherly type, said Sarutobi. I'm not, said Jiraiya. But as his godfather, I want to be there for him. I can't let you take him, Jiraiya, said Sarutobi, looking at Jiraiya darkly from the corner of his eye. I need your spy network now more than ever. But if we just leave him to the citizens, who knows what will happen. Jiraiya sat down at his spot at the window with Naruto in his arms. The baby had stopped crying and was gripping a lock of the sage's white hair. You heard Danzo. I can't just let him be alone. What do you want me to do? Snapped Sarutobi. Just let you take him into the field. You are the Toad Sage, one of our greatest assets. You are in no position to start a family. Jiraiya was about to shoot back at him when he suddenly stopped and went wide-eyed. I don't have a human family, he said with a small smile. But I do have a ma and pa out there. What? Sarutobi looked at Jiraiya with shock. You cannot be serious. Just hear me out, sensei, Jiraiya said with a grin that told that he found his idea to be both brilliant and hilarious. If Naruto stays with ma and pa, he'll be well taken care of in one of the safest places in the world. No one will ever know he is there and I can check up on him all the time. I'd rather he just lived with Tsunade, Sarutobi grumbled. Jiraiya grinned. Tsunade was one of his oldest friends and in the old days he'd held quite a candle for the legendary Kunoichi. With her ageless blonde hair and massive bust size, she was considered the most beautiful woman in the Land of Fire. Despite her position as the world's greatest medic, her bedside manner left a lot to be desired. That caught looking down her shirt and you would be in the hospital for an additional 6 months thanks to her monster strength and demonic temperament. Jiraiya learned that one the hard way. Her alcoholism and gambling habits were as legendary as her strength and medical skills. Sarutobi was being sarcastic as she was the furthest thing from motherly when it came down to it. Aside from her apprentice, Shizune, she loved no one. I could ask her. Sarutobi looked up at him with a deadpan expression. Are you really this dead set on not allowing him to live in the orphanage? I just want him to be safe and to have a family, even if they aren't human, Jiraiya said quietly, looking down at his godson with a pained expression. Sarutobi sighed and stood up, looking out his window. I'll tell you what, he said. If you can convince Tsunade to come back and raise Naruto, I'd welcome her with open arms. But I can't condone him living with. It's not like he'll be living off of a diet of bugs. They have real food there too, you know. Sarutobi did not look at Jiraiya, telling the sage that that was exactly what he was worried about. Sarutobi sighed and looked at Jiraiya sadly. Talk to Tsunade first. Then we will discuss Mount Myoboku. Let me take the boy with me. What? I think I'd have an easier time convincing her than I would without Naruto. Just give me bottles and milk and such and I'll be good to go. Are you an idiot, Jiraiya? Do you know what it would look like if people saw Jiraiya of the Sannin wandering with a baby? Jiraiya responded by performing a henge into a version of himself with no face paint, shorter hair and a different outfit. Sarutobi sighed and looked back out the window. I won't let you go alone. This is something I have to do alone, said Jiraiya with a dark expression. Why? Why do you insist on becoming this child's guardian? Because I've already lost 4 students and I refuse to lose this. Sarutobi stood silently as Jiraiya did his best to keep a straight face, despite the emotional pain he was obviously experiencing. 1 week. What? 1 week to prove to me that you can raise a child. That means diapers, feeding, burping, all of it. Prepare for 1 week of no sleep, hours of crying and days of anguish. Is it really that bad, sensei? I raised 3. I know the horrors of war. 1 week later, Jiraiya stepped out of the hotel room he'd been living in with Naruto. He had bags under his eyes and could not help but yawn every few seconds. Sarutobi was right, it had been a week of hell, but the Toad Sage had triumphed again. The first day consisted of Sarutobi teaching Jiraiya the basics, changing diapers, feeding and the like, as well as how to play with Naruto and keep him entertained. He learned the hard way, meaning a slap on the back of the head, that teaching an infant to use a kunai was a definite no-no. They spent the night in the Hokage mansion with Sarutobi. The second day was only harder. Naruto had kept waking up throughout the night, crying for food, changing, and for what seemed like no reason at all. Sarutobi reasoned that it was the lack of a mother figure, but Jiraiya reasoned that it was just the baby being a little smartass. He also learned the hard way that calling a crying infant a bratty little shit was also a no-no. They spent 2 more agonizing days with the Hokage, who was mostly too wrapped up in his work to mind them, and left Jiraiya on his own with his godson. Eventually Jiraiya got into the swing of things, and Sarutobi decided to test their mettle by having them stay on their own in a hotel for the remainder of the week. Jiraiya was put in an impressively bad mood due to the fact that Naruto had completely eaten up his time for personal research at the bathhouses. Don't think he didn't try, but Naruto's crying only served to get him caught by some military police officers and scolded by the Hokage. He used Toad summons to monitor his spy network as well, but juggling the two was running him ragged. After the week was up, Jiraiya went to the Hokage's office, Naruto placed in a harness kept strapped to his back next to his summoning scroll. Naruto babbled to himself as they walked through the village square, citizens shooting glares at Jiraiya's back as they walked. He had Naruto dressed in an orange t-shirt and dark blue pants with sandals just his size. Normally he would just body flicker, but due to the fact that infants are so fragile, it was not an option. Jiraiya walked up the steps to the Hokage's office and stepped up to the lovely receptionist. "Greetings, Jiraiya-sama," she said cheerily. "How has Naruto come today?" "He's fine, despite being a complete brat. That thing they say about babies helping single men pick up chicks is dead wrong." She giggled at him, which got him to grin lecherously. Perhaps he was wrong. "Hokage-sama is a bit swamped, but I'll let you through." "Thank you, miss," he said, nodding at her as he opened the door to see Sarutobi scribbling furiously at a stack of papers and smoking his pipe. "So sensei, do I pass?" Sarutobi looked up at his former student and set down his pen with a smile. "I must admit, Jiraiya," said the reinstated third Hokage. "Your instinct as a parent has caught me off guard. You have my permission to leave with Naruto on the B-rank mission to find Tsunade Senju and inform her of the attack by the nine-tailed fox." "Thanks, sensei," he said. "But what about the council? Shouldn't they be fighting you tooth and nail about this?" "Surprisingly, that isn't the case," said Sarutobi, taking a puff from his pipe. "Danzo fought me of course, but the rest of them want Naruto gone." "Good riddance," they said. "Homura even suggested that taking care of a baby would be a good way of grooming you to become a Hokage yourself. He said it would make you think about the responsibilities of a leader." Jiraiya grimaced at the idea but didn't feel like arguing. He was too tired. "I do have one condition on you leaving, and I won't take no for an answer," Hiruzen said. "What is it, sensei?" "Be careful. You know that Tsunade loved Kushina. Let her know carefully." Jiraiya nodded and adjusted Naruto, who was cooing quietly and pulling on Jiraiya's hair. "We'll be going then. If I don't find her within the next 2 weeks, I'll be back. Do you have everything you need? Bottles, milk, diapers, and sealing scroll sensei. What about blankets? It gets cold at night and I don't want him getting sick. I have those too sensei, as well as medicine, toys and such." "Stop being such a worrywart." "I'm sorry," said Sarutobi with a sad smile. "It's just that I have not had the opportunity to call myself grandpa yet and I'm getting worried that my sons will not be sowing the seeds of Sarutobi anytime soon." "Gross. Shut up." Jiraiya smiled at his sensei, who grinned back. Jiraiya walked out of the door for the first time in his career as a ninja and took the stairs to the ground floor. When Jiraiya reached the gate leading out of the village, he felt a familiar presence behind him and turned to see his old teammate Orochimaru leaning against the village wall with his trademark serpentine grin plastered on his porcelain face. Orochimaru was in his shinobi gear as usual with his black hair tied in a neat ponytail. Orochimaru and Jiraiya went back a long way. They had been in service together for almost 30 years. They'd trained together, fought together, laughed together and cried together. But in recent years, with Tsunade's departure and Minato's place as the fourth Hokage, the two sages had grown apart. It wasn't easy for Jiraiya, and Orochimaru's frustration with Sarutobi for naming Minato Namikaze as his successor only increased the rift between the two friends. Now they barely spoke, and when they did, it was always short and hostile. "Hey Orochimaru, what's up?" Jiraiya said with an uneasy smile. He never saw Orochimaru anymore, and if what he'd heard about possible experiments on human subjects were true, he didn't want to. "So the dead last is a daddy?" Orochimaru said slyly. "Who did you knock up?" Jiraiya glared at Orochimaru and scoffed. "This is my godson Orochimaru," he said, moving in closer. "I think you know whose child it is." Orochimaru dropped his smile. "I also know that Danzo wants what's inside of it." "Watch yourself Jiraiya," the snake Sannin grinned cruelly. "I might come and take him first to run a few tests." Jiraiya's expression changed from one of disapproval to one of restrained anger. Orochimaru's tongue flicked out of his mouth before he turned and walked away. Jiraiya took a few steps backwards before leaving at an upsetting pace. The ninja guarding the gates looked at each other, not having heard the exchange and shrugged. That was the last time Jiraiya and Orochimaru would speak to each other on anything resembling civil terms. Jiraiya and Naruto had been walking for about 8 hours through the Land of Fire. They were headed southwest towards Tenzakugai, a frequent haunt for Tsunade of the Sannin and her apprentice Shizune. The large city was well known for its brothels and gambling halls, as well as several of Jiraiya's favorite bathhouses. He was looking forward to it, but at the rate they were going, coupled with the fact that he had to stop every 4 hours or so to feed the infant on his back, he estimated a week's travel. If he'd been on his own, it would only have taken 2 days. He sat down in a clearing and started a fire, prepared to rest for the night. The sun was just hitting the horizon, and Naruto was sleeping quietly. He set down a sealing scroll and summoned a bottle of milk from within it. He opened another revealing a big blue tarp, which he laid on the ground. He then opened a scroll containing a bed for Naruto, just a basket lined with a cushion and blankets. Jiraiya changed Naruto's diaper, burying the offending garment in some bushes nearby with disgust. He then took Naruto from his harness and fed him. "I've had you for a week kid," he said to Naruto, who just stared at him as he drank from the bottle. "And I have to say, this has been the hardest part of my career as a shinobi." When Naruto had finished his bottle, Jiraiya put him in his basket and sat with his back against a tree, staring into the fire. He pulled the basket close to him and settled in for the night. He bit his thumb and went through several hand seals, planting his hand firmly on the ground. Fuchius no Jutsu. With a puff of smoke, a large toad appeared. It had orange skin covered in blue markings. He had bandages wrapped around his body and left foreleg and wore a necklace with 7 large beads on it, with a kanji for loyalty on the largest. "What's up boss?" it asked. "I need you to keep watch for us tonight, okay Gamma?" Jiraiya requested quietly. "No problem Jiraiya." "Who's the kid?" "This is Minato's son, Naruto." "Oh," the toad said with surprise. "Word reached the mountain that the Kyuubi no Yoko attacked Konoha. Are the rumors true?" Jiraiya nodded solemnly at his familiar. "I'm sorry boss," said the toad with a hint of sadness. "Minato was a great summoner." Jiraiya smiled. "I'm sure Naruto will be someday as well. I need to get some sleep for the night. Wake me up before the sun comes up." "Sure thing boss." "Are you that tired? You try taking care of a kid on your own for a week." Point taken. The next few days went by without many problems other than a general lack of sleep from Jiraiya. They continued on their way with Gamma being summoned each night to keep watch. Sometimes he would come with them to keep them company. Jiraiya would sometimes take Naruto out of the harness and hold him while they walked. Naruto was in Jiraiya's arms making more noise than usual. Jiraiya looked down at him and saw Naruto squealing and reaching at Gamma. Jiraiya laughed and set Naruto on Gamma's back with no protest from the toad. At least until Naruto started drooling on him and slapping the top of his head enthusiastically, getting a few good chuckles from Jiraiya and grumbles from Gamma. "I think we could get there faster if I just gave you a ride, croaked Gamma. "I don't know, I don't want a bumpy ride to jostle him," replied Jiraiya, looking down at Naruto. "I'll be careful, Jiraiya. If I take it nice and easy we could be there in 2 more days, I don't need to sleep like you do." Jiraiya considered the offer, but decided not to risk it. "Let's just walk." "Sure thing, boss." As they made their way they passed through several smaller settlements. A few of the shinobi and citizens there stopped to wave at the toad sage. Several women outside of the local bathhouses stopped to shake their fists and glare at him. "You see that, Naruto?" He mumbled to the boy. "That's called the price of creativity." The infant cooed in return. "I know, you'd think they'd be more understanding of my genius as a writer," he said, acting offended. It was obvious to Gamma that he was just bored. "We can stop if you want, boss," croaked the toad. "We haven't looked in a bathhouse together in weeks." "I'll be fine," said Jiraiya. "For now at least." "Suit yourself," croaked Gamma, sounding almost disappointed. As they approached the town marking their halfway point, Naruto began to get cranky. Jiraiya decided that since they were in a more populated area, it would be a good time to rest and put himself under cover. Jiraiya dismissed Gamma and performed a henge. His hair was much shorter, just past his neck as it had been in his childhood. His face paint was gone along with a wart on his nose and his forehead protector. His shinobi gear was replaced with civilian clothes, a brown leather coat, some dirty trousers and sandals. He placed Naruto in the harness and strapped it to his back, proceeding into town. It was approaching noontime, so he decided it would be best to get some lunch for himself and feed Naruto. He stopped at a local restaurant, just a small ramen bar, and ordered some lunch for himself. He had Naruto in one arm, feeding him a bottle with the same hand, while struggling to eat his ramen with his other hand, more often dropping the noodles into the bowl and splattering soup everywhere than getting it into his own mouth. Eventually he managed the impossible and finished his food at the same time as Naruto. He placed the bottle back in its scroll and ordered a glass of water. "He's so cute," said the waitress behind the counter as she washed his bowl with a smile. "Where did he get those adorable whisker marks?" Jiraiya struggled for an explanation. "Got him from his mother." It wasn't a complete lie. The marks appeared as a birthmark from the Kyuubi after all. "Is it a clan thing?" asked the waitress. She was cute, with long brown hair up in a ponytail, but the questions were a bit annoying to the sage. "Yeah, something like that." Jiraiya reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet, Gamma-chan, placing several ryo on the counter. Naruto began making noises and reaching for the wallet. Jiraiya shrugged and gave it to him as Naruto began babbling and playing with his new toy. "Well, he's so well behaved. He must have a good dad," she said with a wink before returning to her chores. That comment got a smile out of Jiraiya. He finished his water and put Naruto in his harness before moving on his way. Several men walked by him, one of them trying to shove Jiraiya out of the way. Jiraiya was not one to be bold and did not budge, just shoving past them himself, glaring hotly. "Hey Nanami." One of them shouted over the counter. "Your damn boyfriend still owes us his protection for this month." He had a medium height and build, wearing a brown suit, sunglasses, some fine-looking leather gloves and slicked black hair. His 2 compatriots did not look as well off and were as simply dressed as Jiraiya was. Jiraiya took a few steps backwards and accidentally bumped into a large horse. He turned and saw that it was hitched to a very fancy-looking wagon. He assumed the men came in on this thing. "Kenji isn't here today," he heard the waitress reply with an edge of fear in her voice. "He was in Konoha to meet his uncle, but he hasn't come back yet." "That's a damn shame," said the man in the suit. "But Takuma-sama needs to make a living. The Kyuubi no Yoko's appearance in Konoha has disrupted his business and he needs to collect." "Wait, what?" The girl's voice faltered. Obviously, she had not yet heard the news. "That's right. So if Kenji-kun didn't make it, that means his debts fall to you. So either pay up or you'll have to come with us." "Come with you?" She began to sound afraid. "Takuma-sama owns a brothel in Tenzakugai. He needs more workers," the man sneered while looking her up and down. His presumed bodyguards grinned lecherously. "She obviously isn't looking for a new job," said Jiraiya from his spot by the horse, a stern look on his face. "No one asked you," said the man. He slapped one of his men in the arm. "Sanji, go teach this punk a lesson. Watch out for the baby though, we wouldn't want to hurt his whittle head." A thug named Sanji chuckled at his boss's jab and approached Jiraiya. Jiraiya sized up his opponent and determined that this punk was no shinobi. He had a thick beard and a mohawk and had very tanned skin. He looked like a foreigner, probably from the land of lightning. Sanji walked up to Jiraiya and moved to shove him. Jiraiya sidestepped the guy's attempted push and gave him 2 quick jabs to the abdomen, one to the sternum, and finished with a palm to the forehead. The guy went down hard and Jiraiya knocked him out with a heel to the Sanji's temple. The other thug, smaller than Sanji, clean-shaven and bald, charged at Jiraiya with a high-pitched battle cry. Jiraiya tripped him when he got close and gave him an elbow to the back of the neck, knocking him out instantly. Jiraiya stepped up to the lone shark and grabbed his collar. "That your horse?" he asked, tilting his head back towards the wagon in question. The lone shark nodded slowly, shivering in his loafers. "Well, I have a proposition for you. You give me the horse and you pay off her debt from your own pocket and I don't leave you in the middle of the woods naked and bleeding to death." The man nodded quickly. "I'll be glad to." In fact, he reached into his back pocket shakily, Jiraiya watching him like a hawk. He pulled out his wallet. "I'd like to make a personal investment in this fine establishment, yeah." He pulled out a large wad of bills and threw it at Nanami. She caught the money with a shocked expression and began thanking Jiraiya shakily, tears in her eyes. "That's kind of you," said Jiraiya with a much softer expression. He shoved the lone shark towards the wagon. "You're driving. Thank you so much, Oji-sama," she said with a genuinely happy smile. "How can I pay you back for this?" "Just wait for that boyfriend of yours. The civilian casualties in Konoha were low, I'm sure he made it out fine. I'll hold out hope." "Good," he said, lifting the harness a bit so she could wave goodbye to Naruto. She laughed a bit sadly and waved at the baby. Jiraiya hopped in the back of the wagon, dragging the thugs with him. "Where are we going?" asked the lone shark, afraid to look Jiraiya in the eye. "Danzaku-gai. I have some people I need to visit." Jiraiya tossed the men into the back of the wagon and hopped up front with the man and Naruto. He took Naruto out of the harness and placed the baby in his lap, smiling contentedly the whole time. "What's your name, friend?" The lone shark looked startled at the question and cleared his throat, pulling the reins and setting the wagon into motion. "My name is Kichuru." "Well, Kichuru-san, let's get a move on." Jiraiya yawned and leaned back in his seat, Naruto chewing on Gama-chan happily. 3 days later, Tsunade Senju was drunk. Her hair was down and her jacket was off, her shirt open, revealing her sizable cleavage to all of the Land of Fire. She had been playing blackjack at this casino for hours and she'd nearly lost all of her money. She had however won a prize from the raffle at a traveling carnival the week before. A piglet. A smelly pooping piglet. Shizune had named it Tauntaun. Tsunade, being an optimist in the worst possible way, took winning the pig as a sign that her luck was improving. She was dead wrong and was in the red for 30,000 ryo. The worst part was that this casino was owned by the gambling magnate Takuma, so she knew that if her luck did not turn around in the next 10 minutes or so, if the look security was giving her told her anything, she was going to have to fight her way out. "Shizune, blow these," she said, holding up 2 dice. "Tsunade Heim," Shizune hissed in her teacher's ear. "Blackjack isn't played with dice. Where did you even get those?" Tsunade replied by emptying her sake glass and pushing them closer to Shizune's face. She was pretty drunk. Shizune sighed sadly, knowing that they wouldn't be eating for a while and blew on the dice quickly, backing off in embarrassment right after. Tsunade threw the dice on the floor with such force that it left 2 square holes at her feet. "Hit me," she slurred. The dealer shook his head and looked at Shizune strangely before dealing Tsunade another card. "Take your hands," said the dealer, the other 4 players keeping their distance from the slug princess. The dealer looked at Tsunade's hand last and shook his head. 22. "Sorry lady, but you're out of chips." He dragged Tsunade's remaining poker chips to his pile and shoot her off. "Come on Shizune, I'm sick of this town," said Tsunade, marching towards the exit. "It's a good thing I got here when I did," said a familiar voice from the bar, accompanied by the sound of a baby. Tsunade didn't even turn around, just swayed in place. "The hell do you want, Jiraiya?" she demanded hotly, turning towards her old teammate. "What's with the getup? And the baby? I know it's blonde, but it ain't mine." Jiraiya set down the sake glass he'd been drinking from and paid the bartender, slipping on the harness containing Naruto. Shizune walked up to the baby with little Tauntaun in her arms. "He's so cute, Jiraiya-sama," she said, letting Naruto latch onto her finger and cooing at him. Jiraiya smiled at Tsunade's young apprentice and let her play with Naruto. "It's the kid I need to talk to you about, Tsunade. Let's get out of here so we can talk in private." "Actually, we need to talk to your lady friend," said a large man. Great, now security was taking notice. "She owes us money." "If money is an issue, I'm sure my good buddy will accommodate you," said Jiraiya cheerily, dragging a shaking Kichuru off of the stool next to him. "Won't you?" "Why yeah, whatever you want," stammered Kichuru. "How much does she owe?" 30,000 ryo, said the guard. "You know these guys, Kichuru-sama." "DH 30,000. Gasped the lone shark, his hair standing on end. "That won't be a problem, will it?" asked Jiraiya. Kichuru was about to argue, but felt Jiraiya's grip on his shoulder. "Why yeah, no problem. It's taken care of." Tsunade stared at the exchange. No one had ever actually covered her debt before. The fact that Jiraiya was behind it was less of a surprise, but a surprise nonetheless. "Now that that's taken care of," said Jiraiya, leading the girls to the door. "Shall we?" He rushed them out, knowing full well that Kichiro would not be able to pay off the debt, so it was only a matter of time before a scene started. That didn't need to happen while he had Naruto with him. He dragged them to a hotel he'd gotten and pushed them in, locking the door behind them. Tsunade took a seat in a wooden chair by the door. "Did you two get the news yet?" asked Jiraiya solemnly. Tsunade just stared at him incredulously while he sat on the bed with Naruto. "What the hell do you mean? And will you please tell me why you have a fucking baby? Sensei?" shot Shizune, covering little Naruto's ears. "Oh, grow up, Shizune." "The village was attacked," said Jiraiya, not taking his eyes off of Naruto. Both women stopped bickering immediately. "Attacked?" said Tsunade, sobering almost instantly. "By who?" "The Kyuubi no Yoko. The nine-tailed demon fox." Tsunade and Shizune stared at Jiraiya with horrified expressions. "Well, what happened? Did Minato do anything?" asked Tsunade seriously. "I'm sorry Tsunade, but Minato and Kushina are dead. Sarutobi-sensei is the Hokage again." Tsunade didn't say anything. She just covered her eyes and rubbed her temples trying to make sense of the situation. "When did it happen, Jiraiya-sama?" asked Shizune, hugging her piglet closely. "About a week and a half ago," he said. "Haim. This is their son, Naruto." Tsunade looked up slowly at the baby in Jiraiya's lap, who stared back at her with his big sea blue eyes and a dumb smile plastered on his face. She smiled slightly and looked up at Jiraiya. "So what do you want from me?" she asked. "This isn't a pleasure visit, you old pervert." Jiraiya shook his head and laughed. "I was hoping that the kid would help me get laid." He laughed heartily but shrank away when Tsunade held up a fist. "Sarutobi-sensei wants you to come back to the village. We could use your help in rebuilding. I also don't want Naruto put in an orphanage, so you want to dump a kid on me?" Tsunade shot up from her seat and glared at Jiraiya. "Who the hell do you think I am? A babysitter?" "No, Tsunade," Jiraiya tried to reason with her. "It was Sensei's idea. It's either you or Mount Myoboku." "The toads?" Tsunade stared at him as though he were insane. "Why would you leave a baby with them?" "Because if we leave him in the orphanage he'll just be an outcast later in life. He's already a pariah." "Why? What makes him so important?" Jiraiya pulled Naruto's shirt up and held his hand over the boy's stomach, channeling a bit of chakra into the boy. A black seal faded into existence on Naruto, but the infant was none the wiser. "Izujin Churiki Tsunade." Minato sealed the fox inside of him. Tsunade was speechless and stared at the both of them. "So you want to protect him?" "He's my godson Tsunade." Tsunade looked at the pained expression on Jiraiya's face. She shook her head. "I'm sorry Jiraiya, but I can't." She walked to the door. Her hand landed on the doorknob and she shook slightly. "Everything I love dies. I won't let myself love a kid. Especially theirs." She opened the door and walked out, Shizune hot on her heels. "I'm sorry Jiraiya-sama," said Shizune, wiping tears from her eyes. "It's okay kid," said Jiraiya, smiling sadly. "I knew I was wasting my time. It was good to see you both again." Shizune nodded and ran out the door. Tsunade was walking quickly towards the edge of the city, wanting to be anywhere but there lest she kill her former teammate. Or anyone for that matter. In fact, she noticed, stopping to look around, the streets were barren. The few people she could see were darting around corners and heading down the street at a quick pace. A small tea house across the street was quickly emptying, the workers rushing customers out and closing up shop. Something wasn't right. "Tsunade-sensei," panted Shizune as she caught up to her master. "What about the village? I know you don't want to take care of Naruto-kun, but we could at least go help the village." Tsunade crossed her arms under her sizable bust and stared at her apprentice. "I suppose you're right. We do have an obligation as medic nins, but I really don't want to see Jiraiya's stupid face right now." "What's the rush ladies?" asked someone nearby. They turned to see a corpulent man with a beard and greasy gray hair sitting in a carriage pulled by 2 oxen, surrounded by 6 shinobi guards wearing Iowa headbands. The man wore some of the most expensive clothes they had ever seen, and his fat fingers were covered in expensive-looking rings. This was Takuma Nori, the wealthiest man in the Land of Fire, aside from the Tycoon Gato and the daimyo himself. So this was why everyone was hiding. "You still have a debt to pay to my casino, do you not?" "Listen Takuma, our friend in there said he would pay off our debt," said Tsunade. "Would this be your friend?" he asked, snapping his fingers. One of the ninja tossed a head at Tsunade. It was Jiraiya's companion alright. It seemed he'd been beheaded for not doing his job as a loan shark. He could not pay up and he returned without some of the money I'd been expecting. "The tragedy in Konoha has reduced my income greatly and I do not want to starve. The man must make a living you see." He grinned with a horrifying look of amusement and rubbed his massive belly. "Well then you'll have to get a real job lard ass," shot Tsunade, not in the mood to be bullied by criminals. Takuma's face turned red at the insult about his weight. "I'll have you know I worked my fingers to the bone to get where I am now," he roared, spittle flying. "I will not allow some blonde tramp to sully my name." Tsunade's expression darkened and she cracked her knuckles. Say that to my face, fatty. Takuma was livid. He could only clutch at his chest and struggle to breath as he ordered his ninja to attack. Two of the ninja ran at Tsunade and Shizune, their hands speeding through hand seals. Oten. Jiraiya. They shouted in unison as a wave of earth shot up from the ground. The two shinobi jumped on top of it and rode the wave as it barreled towards the two kunoichi. Tsunade took 4 bounding steps forward and drew her fist back and struck the wave with a chakra-enhanced punch. The stone shattered to pieces and the two ninja leapt off of the wave, only to be met with an angry Shizune in midair, her pet pig in one hand while the other was outstretched, revealing a concealed device mounted to her wrist. She cocked her hand back and multiple senbon launched from the device, striking both ninja in the hearts. They clutched at their chests and fell to the ground, writhing as their hearts struggled against the needles and poison sped through their systems. Tsunade leapt forward before the Iwanins, all obviously Chunins, could react and began systematically taking down each one with her deadly taijutsu. The first one went down with a punch to the throat, the next with a sweep of the leg and a downward strike to his chest, shattering his sternum as well as his ribs. He would die of internal bleeding or a pierced lung, whichever came first. Maybe both. The next two tried to strike Tsunade with kunai, but she lifted her arms quickly and fluidly, her hands pointed downward as she pushed their arms upward, their weapons missing by inches. She grabbed their arms and crushed them with her seemingly infinite strength. She tossed them both into the air with ease, and Shizune struck them both in the necks with her poisoned senbon. The last two jumped forward to protect Takuma, but were caught when she grabbed their throats, the young rock shinobi clutching helplessly at her arms. "Do you two want to die for this sack of shit?" she whispered threateningly. They rapidly shook their heads in the negative. She lifted them off of the ground and threw them over the carriage. The frightened ninja scrambled to their feet and ran the hell out of there as fast as their legs could carry them. Takuma was now purple in the face from both fury and fear, too fat to get himself out of his own carriage. Tsunade stepped onto the driver's seat and bent over his fat belly, her expression dangerous. He was practically foaming at the mouth. "Ooh," she whispered. And then he slumped over, his eyes rolling into the back of his skull and died. Tsunade went wide-eyed and checked him with her mystical palm technique. She rolled her eyes and looked down at Shizune. The fat fuck had a heart attack. Shizune sighed as Tsunade looked around for witnesses and when she saw none, she began to pocket the dead man's many rings and jewels. "These will sell at any pawn shop for a pretty Ryo. We're drinking tonight, Shizune." "What the hell happened here?" demanded Jiraiya as he walked by with Naruto on his back as usual. He scanned the bodies and looked at Tsunade, who was looking at him like a deer caught in the headlights as she stole a dead man's belongings. "Really, Haim? It's not my fault," she said. "He had a heart attack. Besides, he was crooked scum. I'd bet you good money that if you sent the cops to his office, you'd find plenty of evidence of criminal activity." Jiraiya looked at Shizune for confirmation. "It's true, Jiraiya-sama. Takuma was a loan shark. That's how he made all of his money before he opened up the casinos here." Jiraiya nodded and decided that he would investigate further. He dragged Tsunade and Shizune to the local police and filed a report. Jiraiya lost his disguise, as it was pointless now. The three of them waited for the police to report back to them in the station. "So, Haim," he said. "Since you worked the anger out of your system a bit, my request still stands." "I can't raise a kid, Jiraiya," she said, looking down at the floor. "I just can't handle that kind of responsibility." "I understand," Jiraiya said. "I just figured I'd ask you before we made any other decisions. Kushina did look up to you, you know." Tsunade smiled slightly and looked at her former teammate. "I will, however," she said. "Return home for a while to help out the old man. I do owe him that much." Jiraiya smiled happily at his friend's decision. He knew she wouldn't stay for long, but he took what he could get. They sat for some time, Jiraiya and Tsunade made some small talk about recent events, aside from the fox, while Shizune played with Naruto. "So, will the old man let the kid live with the toads?" asked Tsunade. "Hopefully," replied the sage. "But I don't know. He wants Naruto to live as a normal kid, but I don't see that happening. He'd be safer with people that love him, not people that will shun him." "By people you mean those slimy bug-eating amphibians?" she asked with no humor in her voice. "Where will you be in all of this?" "I'll be with him as much as I can," said Jiraiya. "I know my spy network is important, but Naruto is too. I'll do my best." "Sometimes your best just isn't enough," said Tsunade, her brow creasing, making the diamond on her forehead more prominent. "When you love someone," said Jiraiya, looking at Naruto, who was reaching for Gama-chan, who in turn was being held hostage by a giggling Shizune. "Sometimes you need to push past your best. I'm going to do that. Besides, when he gets old enough to receive ninja training, I can just take him with me." "So you plan on taking him as your apprentice right off the bat? What if he doesn't want to be a toad sage?" "That's up to him. I'll teach him what they learn at the academy, maybe some more, and then when he gets old enough, I'll see if he wants to join the academy for real. If he wants to succeed me as a sage, that's up to him." What if something happens to you? Tsunade asked, looking away from Jiraiya. What if you leave him at the mountain and can't come back? Then he's better off just living with the toads until they see fit to carry out my wishes. I'll write a will. There's no changing your mind on this, is there? She asked with a smile, looking at him. I'm a stubborn old fool, he said with a grin. But the ladies love that about me. Yeah, right, she scoffed. You're cold, you know the time. When the police got back to Jiraiya, Tsunade's accusations were confirmed. Takuma Nori's desk and files were full of evidence in the form of ledgers, personal files, and banknotes. The obese man was loaning money to anyone and everyone. Those that couldn't pay him back lost their homes, businesses and livelihoods that Takuma took for himself. Many of the women in his brothels were victims of their fathers' and husbands' various debts. Worst of all, a later search of Takuma's casinos revealed that the man was in the opium trade. Some of his files linked him to the trading tycoon Gedo, but since Gedo was not based in the Land of Fire, he was out of their jurisdiction. Not even Konoha could touch him for the time being. Gedo had a reputation as a brutal and cunning businessman. He was known for hiring missing nins as security, but mostly stuck with whatever thugs he could gather up in port towns. His influence was also seen in Konoha, as many of their goods were brought in by Gedo's trading caravans. It was doubtful that his dealings in Konoha were illegal, because then the Hokage would send hordes of Anbu to wipe his greasy little head off of the map, jurisdiction be damned. He was currently stationed in the Land of Tea. So now, with Takuma dead, the local town leaders seized his property and disposed of his opium. Plans were made to close down his brothels and replace them with hotels. Jiraiya hoped that they would include bathhouses, but kept his hopes silent in case Tsunade heard him. Jiraiya, Naruto, Tsunade and Shizune soon left Tenzakukai and headed home to Konohagakure. When the small group returned to Konoha a week later, they were met with a fairly grand reception. People ran up to Tsunade, crying and thanking her for returning. Many of them wanted her to come treat their sick or injured, as the hospital did not have room for everyone. Her instincts as a medic immediately kicked in, and she dragged Shizune off, leaving Jiraiya alone with Naruto. Jiraiya sighed and looked at the baby. Women, he muttered, walking on towards the Hokage tower to give his report. They see one person with a missing limb, and suddenly it's doctor time. What about my needs? I could use a doctor. He giggled to himself as he stepped through the crowds who were flocking to see their slug princess's return. Apparently the news that the world's greatest medic was back in Konoha was spreading like wildfire. When he made it to Saratobi's office, the Hokage was taking a break, looking out his window at the chaos below and smoking his pipe. At the sight of his student and Naruto, he put it out. So, I hear Tsunade has returned, said the wise old shinobi. I don't know what you did to get her back, but I'm glad it worked. Will she be assisting with Naruto-kun's situation? Saratobi got out of his seat, not waiting for an answer before taking Naruto out of the harness and taking the baby back to his chair, holding little Naruto and smiling as the infant tugged at his goatee. She refused to take Naruto, said Jiraiya with a hint of sadness in his deep voice. But I still refuse to let you put him in an orphanage, sensei. I can't afford to let you get so attached that you would neglect your duties to Konoha, said Saratobi a bit coldly. I won't neglect anything, Jiraiya shot back. Especially Naruto. Saratobi stared at him for a long time, ignoring that Naruto was beginning to cry fussily in his arms. The old Hokage let out a long and drawn-out sigh before handing Naruto back to his former pupil. The Hokage turned his chair away from them and stared out of the window. I have several conditions for this arrangement, Jiraiya, he said, the cold edge of his voice still there. First, I want him brought to Konoha every other month so I may check his progress. Second, I want his medical needs taken care of by Tsunade and only Tsunade. Third, the very second he comes of age, I want him in the ninja academy. Jiraiya smiled at his sensei's demands. I see no problem there, he said happily, holding Naruto in front of him and grinning. And if I see a single wart on that baby, I'll have your head, Jiraiya. Both men were quiet for several seconds before they began laughing together. Saratobi turned around to look at his student and his godson. Good luck, Jiraiya, he said. Thanks, sensei. Oh, and Jiraiya, said Saratobi. How exactly do you plan on monitoring your sources now that you have an infant in your care? I was going to use messenger toads, said Jiraiya. They are reliable, and I use them whenever I return to Konoha. I'll only need to leave Naruto with Ma and Pa when it's really vital to village security. It also seems that word about the Kyuubi's attacks are spreading very slowly. It will be some time before Kumo gets word that the village was even attacked. You should have plenty of time to regain strength before they find out. Saratobi nodded sagely. Well, I have plenty of work ahead of me then. Now get out of my office, the both of you, before I change my mind. There's just one more thing, sensei, Jiraiya said hesitantly. What is it? I was thinking, the sage said slowly. I think it would be better for Naruto if I raised him as my son. What are you getting at, Jiraiya? I think it would be healthier for him emotionally if he thought I was his father, at least until he was old enough to understand why Minato did what he did. What if word gets out that you have a child? What then, Jiraiya? Then we'll tell everyone I was raising him in secret to keep him safe. And a mother. One thing at a time, sensei. I'll think of something if he asks me. When? Said Sarutobi. He shook his head. I know you love the boy, Jiraiya, but be careful. I'll go along with your plan, but if it hurts the boy down the road, that's on your head, not mine. Jiraiya nodded, his expression serious. Well, I'll go say goodbye to Tsunade and head to Myoboku. I just need to stock up on the essentials and I'll be out of your hair. How will you be getting there? Just a reverse summoning should do the trick, said Jiraiya. See you in 2 months. Goodbye, Jiraiya, said Sarutobi, lighting his pipe again. And Godspeed. Jiraiya rolled his eyes at his sensei's over-dramatization of child-rearing and left. What, so I'm supposed to play pediatrician now? Demanded Tsunade as she tried to ignore Shizune performing surgery on a civilian patient. Her hemophobia appeared to be as strong as it ever was, considering the fact that she was testy and rather pale. She refused to treat serious wounds or major surgeries because of it. She would still cure broken bones or internal damage, such as torn muscles or ruptured organs, however, something Shizune was not as adept at. Don't worry, Haim, said Jiraiya, leaning on the doorframe of the patient's bedroom. Naruto was on his back, but Jiraiya was making sure to keep the infant from seeing the bloody surgery taking place. It's only to monitor his chakra systems and his seal. I can't sense someone's chakra like a Hyuga can, but your medical jutsu will help me keep an eye on it. So you want me to make sure the Kyuubi isn't harming him in any way? How shoddy is that damned seal? It's damn near perfect. The thing is, it's made to filter the Kyuubi's chakra into Naruto's system at all times, making him used to it. Basically, he'll have insane chakra in later life, compared to most Jinchuriki including Kushina, it would be like a bucket of water in the daimyo's swimming pool. In theory, that is. I just don't know how well his system will handle it. It could be like pumping water into a balloon until it bursts, or it could be like adding on to a reservoir. Just building a dam down the line and releasing the water into it. When the lake gets full again, another dam is built and the water is released again. So you're saying we've got the greatest ninjutsu powerhouse on our hands since the creation of ninjutsu? Exactly. I think what Minato had in mind was for Naruto to control the Kyuubi, rather than the other way around. Tsunade took a moment to digest the information before nodding. Alright, I'll do it. I'll want to check on his systems every 6 months or so. The old man wants us back every 2 months. It might be good to do it then. Fine, but I doubt his chakra reserves will increase that rapidly. I sure hope they don't, said Jiraiya, rubbing the back of his neck. How long are you staying in Konoha? I think I'll be leaving when everything is back up to speed. I'll come back when it's time for Naruto's checkups. Jiraiya nodded, but something didn't seem right. Tsunade was being way too easy with this. Why was she being so agreeable? Tsunade, he said slowly. Why are you agreeing with this so easily? Normally you would be fighting tooth and nail to ever come back here. What changed? Tsunade was silent for a bit, looking down at the floor as she searched for the right words. I think, she said. Konoha had just lost the greatest leader it's ever had. And I lost a very dear friend of mine in Kushina. This kid is the last Uzumaki, even if it is on his mom's side, and even if he doesn't look anything like an Uzumaki. I'm a Senju, and it's really my job to keep our past eyes, isn't it? I think the best thing I could do to honor her memory is to help out a kid, even if it's just a little. Jiraiya stared at her. He knew her answer was bullshit. He could feel it hanging in the air. He caught her staring at Naruto intently. He looked at the baby, and then he saw it. Little Naruto bore a very close resemblance to Tsunade's brother, Nawaki Senju. Nawaki was a very eager child who wanted nothing more to be a ninja. When the Second Great Shinobi War broke out, Nawaki was just turning 12 years old. He shared his dream of becoming Hokage with his sister on his 12th birthday, who gave him their grandfather's necklace in the hopes that it would help him achieve his dream. The day after his birthday, Nawaki died in battle after running into an explosive trap. Orochimaru was with him and returned the necklace to Tsunade, who was completely devastated. Jiraiya remembered that day. He had tried to console Tsunade, but to no avail. He could never be there for her as he'd wanted to. Eventually the two of them parted ways and rarely looked back. Jiraiya nodded at Tsunade and after a brief goodbye, he left. He went to the park and walked in between some trees. He summoned Gamma and requested a reverse summoning to Mount Myoboku. The toad agreed and left in a puff of smoke. Jiraiya sat down in the grass and crossed his legs. A few moments later his vision was clouded with smoke and when it cleared, his environment had changed completely. He was now in a dense jungle, filled with fauna of many contrasting, yet seamlessly blending colors ranging from the lightest green to the darkest crimson. Massive insects buzzed around in the air, ignoring the newcomers as they fed off of either the massive multicolored flowers of the forest or each other. Jiraiya stood off of the scroll he'd been sitting on, allowing Gamma to roll it up. The toad proceeded to wrap his massive prehensile tongue around it and swallow it. Jiraiya brushed himself off and snapped to attention when he finally realized that Naruto was crying loudly. He pulled his son off of his back and tried to comfort the child. Naruto had obviously been startled by the amount of smoke and the sudden change in scenery. "I'm a boy," screeched a very familiar voice. "What in Toad's name is that racket?" Jiraiya began to panic as he started trying to quietly get Naruto to be quiet. "Hush kid, hush," he whispered frantically. "If she finds us she's gonna make us eat her cooking." He quickly pulled out Gama-chan, which caused Naruto to shut up immediately, but it was too late. "Jiraiya boy," cried the voice as it rounded some plants. Jiraiya's blood ran cold and he slowly turned around. He'd hoped to find Pa first, but for now, he was stuck with Ma, or should I say Shima. Shima was a purple toad with a light green face and underbody. Her head was extraordinarily lumpy, making her look like she'd been wearing a hairnet with curlers under it. She hopped up to Jiraiya, her black cape fanning out behind her. "Hey Ma," said Jiraiya slowly. "How are you? We already ate by the way." "Don't sass me Jiraiya boy," she said sternly. "You may have eaten, but it obviously wasn't enough. You want to grow up big and strong like your pa don't you?" "Ah is 2 feet tall, Ma," Jiraiya said with a deadpan expression. "And I'm 38 years old for God's sake." "Yes, yes," she said, brushing off his excuses like sawdust. "Our little Jiraiya boy is growing up. Come, let's get you fed and wait, what are you holding?" Jiraiya looked down at Naruto who was gumming on Thewillet absent-mindedly. "What, this?" "Jiraiya." Shima screeched, her purple and green head going nearly white with shock. "What did you do? Where is the poor girl?" "What?" screamed Jiraiya. "Oh. I knew your pa should have taught you the birds and the bees years ago," she wept into her cape. "No ma," he'd said. "The boy's nearly 30, he'd said. But I knew. It was that Tsunade wasn't it? I'll have to give that girl's father a piece of my mind." "Ma!" cried out another voice from around the corner. "Quit screaming. Bunta boy is still recovering from his fight with that damned Kyuubi and he's trying to rest." Out from the underbrush came a dark green toad with bushy wide eyebrows and a tuft of white hair on top of his head. He wore a cape like Shima did. "Oh, Jiraiya boy," said the elder toad. Fukasaku, or Pa as he was commonly referred to, was a ninjutsu master over 800 years old. Mount Myoboku was mostly his territory, aside from his master the great toad sage. Shima was his wife and they were 2 of the most revered toads on the mountain. "Why did you make Ma cry? And whose baby is that?" "Our Jiraiya boy is a delinquent," wept Shima, grabbing Fukasaku by his cape and shaking him. "Ma!" cried Jiraiya, on the verge of tears himself from receiving such treatment. "This ain't my kid." Shima immediately stopped weeping and looked at Jiraiya suspiciously. "You wouldn't lie to your old ma would you boy?" she asked. "Of course not." He shot back at her. "This is Minato's son, Naruto." The toads were silent for a minute before Shima began weeping again and latched onto her husband. "Our Minato boy is a delinquent." "Stop that ma!" Fukasaku shouted, pushing her off of him and straightening his cape. "We both know Minato boy is married." "Minato is dead," said Jiraiya abruptly, deciding the only way to get through to the sages was to pull no punches. "And so is his wife. They were killed sealing the fox within their son." The toads immediately stopped bickering and looked up at Jiraiya with shock until recollection dawned on both of them. "Bunta boy said as much," said Fukasaku. "But we didn't believe it. We didn't want to." "I'm sorry ma pa." "No, Jiraiya," said Shima. "It's alright. We'll just miss that boy. So tell us why you've come back here and why you brought the baby with you." "I've decided to adopt Naruto," said Jiraiya. "And I want to keep him here, where he'll be the safest." "Why here?" asked Fukasaku, wrapping his cape around himself. "No one knows where it is, and I think if he doesn't live in Konoha, he'll have an easier time there when he becomes a shinobi. Right now most of the villagers hate him for what's inside of him." "I see your point Jiraiya boy," said Fukasaku. "Come, Bunta boy and the others will want to meet him. How long will you be keeping him here?" "I think until he turns 7 years old. Maybe 5 if he can learn the basics of the academy at an early age. As soon as he comes of age he'll be put in the academy. Sarutobi-sensei's orders. I also need to bring him down there every 2 months for checkups with Tsunade and to meet the old man. Stay as long as you want Jiraiya boy." When they rounded the corner, they were met with a road surrounded by massive toad statues and mushrooms of every size, shape and color. In the distance were several buildings, larger than anything in Konoha, and massive plant-like structures that bent at near the middle and released waterfalls from their tops into even larger lakes. Jiraiya was led to a large building where Gamabunta resided with his family. He was the chief of the Toad clan and answered only to Shima and Fukasaku. The large toad was wrapped in bandages and was sleeping peacefully on his side. His compatriots Gamakin the clumsy one and Gamahiro, the Kenjutsu master of the toads, were playing shogi on a massive board and table behind him. When Jiraiya entered, he was snoring, his pipe hanging loosely from his mouth. Upon hearing Shima gripe at Jiraiya for being too skinny, he opened one eye and looked down on his summoner. "Jiraiya," he said in his low, gravely rumble. "Looks like you survived that damned fox. Heard about Minato. Damn shame." "Yeah," said Jiraiya with a nod. "He was a good apprentice. Better summoner than you." "Oh, shut up." Jiraiya's indignant protest at Gamabunta's attitude of him caused Naruto to drop his wallet and begin to cry. "What the hell is that?" demanded Gamabunta, leaning down to get a better look. "This is Naruto, Minato's son. I'm adopting him and raising him here, away from Konoha where he'd be shunned." "Why the hell is that?" asked the Toad Chief, croaking indignantly as Gamakin and Gamma Hero leaned over him to take a look at the crying infant. "He's got the fox sealed inside of him. Minato saw no other way to get rid of it." Gamabunta nodded and took a puff from his pipe. "So he's a Jinchuriki now. We'll have to train him, just like we did with you and Minato." Jiraiya grinned at his old friend. "I hoped you'd say something like that." Shima tugged on Jiraiya's pant leg. "Let me hold him, Jiraiya boy." She croaked at him. He leaned down and passed the baby to his ma. "He's going to be a strong one, pa." "I already know the tadpoles will take a liking to him," said Fukasaku, hopping over and taking a look for himself. "Can I hold him next?" asked Gamma Hero, resting his arms on Gamabunta, getting a croak of indignation from the chief. "I would ask as well," said Gamakin, climbing onto Gamabunta's back. "But I am far too ungraceful." "You'll be even more ungraceful once you get over the concussion I'll give you if you idiots don't get the hell off of me," shouted Gamabunta as he began to wrestle with the two giant toads. Naruto's life on Mount Myoboku had a bit of a rocky start. Jiraiya insisted on buying food from Konoha and bringing it there via reverse summoning, so Naruto did not have to live off of mashed up bugs as Shima wanted. While her culinary skills were legendary amongst toads, they left a lot to be desired when it came to human visitors. Such as edibility. Shima and Fukasaku loved Naruto from the moment they'd held him, though the crying often drove Fukasaku to spend time in Gamakin's tavern, away from his screaming wife, the complaining Jiraiya and the crying Naruto. Shima tried to put herself in charge of Naruto, but Jiraiya wouldn't allow it because she would try to feed him her cooking. So, Jiraiya took it upon himself to feed, change and bathe Naruto. When word came from Jiraiya's contacts that required his personal attendance, he would always send a shadow clone to do it for him. The fact that the clone needed to go so far for so long often meant he needed to use the majority of his chakra reserves for the single clone. It left him exhausted, but he didn't want to leave Naruto's side. So, every 2 months Jiraiya would take Naruto home to Konoha to meet with Tsunade and Sarutobi. The first few visits went off well, but Tsunade's constant comings and goings were causing a strain on her dedication to avoid her home village. As a solution, she got a loan from Sarutobi and bought a small patch of land in the forest surrounding Konoha and with the help of the village's Genins, built a house that doubled as a medical clinic. It was classified as a D-ranked mission. 6 months after Jiraiya and Naruto made their home in Myoboku, Orochimaru insisted on attending Naruto's checkups. He said it was an interest in Fuinjutsu, the art of sealing. He would take notes on Tsunade's procedures, insisting all the while that it was to help Konoha's research and development department. Every time he got too close however, Naruto would get fussy and Jiraiya would become irritable, so he kept his distance. On one particular day, he decided to take his chances. Jiraiya needed to meet with a contact within the village, so he left Tsunade's home, believing that the slug princess would keep a watchful eye on Orochimaru. While she was checking on his seal, she went to pick up her notes, but found they weren't there. She gave Orochimaru a silent glance and left to go find her papers. As soon as she'd left, Orochimaru reached for Naruto. The baby's eyes went wide and he began to shake. Orochimaru grinned. "So fragile," he whispered. "But so much latent power. If I can just get a mark on the boy, perhaps he would be a viable candidate. I want that power." He began to lean down, his canines extending slightly, prepared to sink into the infant's belly just above his seal. Then his jaw snapped shut as a fist came in and slammed his chin with an uppercut. "What the fuck are you doing?" roared Tsunade, grabbing her former teammate by the throat, slamming him against the wall. Cracks appeared in the woodwork of the wall he was against as he struggled to breath. Tsunade dropped him to the floor and he gazed up at her with a cruel sneer. "Why do you protect him, Tsunade?" He gasped out the words. "He means nothing to you." Tsunade was silent before she hissed at the snake Sannin. "Get out." Orochimaru stood up slowly, leaning on the wall. He staggered out of the building and disappeared into the trees. Tsunade ran to the baby and began checking on him. He was no longer shaking, but he looked like he was prepared to cry at any time. Tsunade silently picked him up and held him to her chest, humming quietly until he had calmed down and fallen asleep. She looked down at the sleeping form against her and smiled softly, tears welling in the corners of her eyes. "I'll protect you," she said. "Because I can." From that point on, Tsunade began disregarding her need to gamble and drink in order to make sure Naruto was safe anytime he visited the village. She was often there to greet Jiraiya and his son when they would return to the village and would insist on Jiraiya conducting his business while she and Shizune took Naruto to the park or to their home. "Really, Haim?" Jiraiya asked suspiciously during one visit. "And here I thought you couldn't love anyone." That got him two brand new black eyes. Naruto's time with the toads was beginning to show in his behavior. When he was 6 months old, he learned to crawl but would often try to hop like the toads did. Lack of limb strength made it futile and he just ended up scooting on his belly. Jiraiya would bet with Fukasaku on how far he could go until he tired himself out. Amabunta became a bit attached to the boy. Once, Jiraiya was in a panic because he couldn't find Naruto anywhere. He scoured the toad village to no avail. He even asked the great toad sage to divine his son's presence in his crystal ball, but his request fell on literally deaf ears. He later found the baby napping on Gamabunta's back, the toad chief sleeping as well with a content smile on his face. When Jiraiya tried to wake him up, it did not go over well. "Shut the hell up, Jiraiya," whispered Gamabunta. "I just got the gaki to sleep, let's keep it that way." Jiraiya wasn't too surprised. Gamabunta was a bit of a family man, so to speak. Amakin refused to touch the child, insisting on his ungracefulness. Gamahiro wanted to forge a sword for the kid but was too large to work a human-sized forge. The younger toads loved Naruto as well. When he turned 2 years old he found his first real friend in Gamabunta's Polywog son Gamakichi. The two became almost inseparable. "See the Bunta boy?" asked Fukasaku as he watched Naruto and Gamakichi play in a large pond near Gamabunta's house. "I think Naruto boy's found himself a familiar." Gamabunta smiled and puffed from his pipe. "Of course. Jiraiya's son and my son. They will be a powerful team. So you do care, Bunta?" chuckled Jiraiya as he body flickered onto the chief's head. "Get off of me, you loud-mouthed moron." 2 years after the Kyuubi attack on Hagakure, "Hey dad?" asked the blonde whisker-marked toddler as he walked through the hidden village, hand in hand with his tall, white-haired, bizarrely dressed father. The boy himself was in a short shirt kimono with matching pants like his father, though his was in orange. On his feet he wore brown sandals. "What's up, kid?" replied Jiraiya, looking down at his son as they wandered through Konoha's shopping district on their way to the Hokage's mansion. "What's up with those things on ladies' chests? We saw lots of them at the bathhouse today and I liked looking at them, but what are they for?" "At Naruto," replied Jiraiya with a sagely smile, taking his chin in between his forefinger and thumb and posing as though pondering a philosophical quandary. They stopped at an ice cream vendor on the side of the street. "Is the kind of question that earns you a popsicle." The boy whooped happily as his father bought the kind with 2 sticks that you snap in half and share. He did just that and handed Naruto half the popsicle, taking his son's hand as they continued on their way. Over time, with Naruto not being in the village for more than a few days at a time, people's hostility for him began to trickle down. After all, if he was considered the son of a legendary ninja like Jiraiya, the kid couldn't be that evil. They would still steal glances at the boy but wouldn't make a sound, seeing as he was never separated from Jiraiya. "Would Hokage not want to see us today?" asked Naruto, forgetting his previous question entirely. "He said something about business with Orochimaru," replied the toad sage, biting off the end of his frozen treat. "Boo. He was on my ninja team a long time ago." "Oh. Is he as strong as you?" "Nah," grinned Jiraiya proudly. "Our toads are way cooler than his snakes." "You don't need tall-eyed dad," said Naruto with a surprisingly condescending tone. "Oh, shut up. I'll take that ice cream away, you know." After a bit of bickering and some running around in the street, Jiraiya stopped to ponder why his sensei had been so hushed about his meeting with Orochimaru. Was it really that important? His eyes went wide in shock, while Naruto and the surrounding citizens cried out in horror as a huge explosion rocked the village, a spot not far from the shopping district covered in billowing smoke and debris. "Several seconds ago, Orochimaru," gasped the third Hokage, here is in Sarutobi as he beheld a horrific sight. A laboratory, a terrifying place, the walls lined with the mutilated remains of his precious citizens and shinobi. Slowly, his student turned around and stared down Sarutobi with a wicked grin, a scalpel held in his hand. "What have you done?" And then, Orochimaru was there, a maddening grin threatening to tear his head apart as his face came mere inches away from Sarutobi. Orochimaru went flying from the flaming wreckage of the basement laboratory he'd been keeping beneath the shopping district of Konoha. His legs morphed into the tail of a snake before he landed, allowing him to dart into the crowds. Anbu was already on him though, running across buildings to keep up with him. From beneath the smoldering remains, a haggard yet determined voice rang out. "Kuchiyus no Jutsu." There was a great rush of wind as the third Hokage in full battle gear, his hat and robes tossed aside, leapt from the smoke followed closely by the Monkey King Enma, his personal summon. The two landed in the streets. "So Orochimaru has finally turned traitor," said Enma, his white hair billowing in the breeze. "We must find him." Shot Sarutobi as the two of them leapt onto the buildings above, following the Anbu squads tightly. They spotted Orochimaru making a beeline for the Konoha public park. As soon as he made it out of the crowds, Sarutobi leapt into action. "Now Enma!" he shouted. "Henge! Kong Nioi!" Enma shouted, running through hand signs. With a burst of smoke he became a massive adamantine staff. Sarutobi grabbed Enma and leapt in front of Orochimaru, slamming the staff into the ground in front of his former student. Orochimaru stopped in his tracks. "So my explosive traps were no match for the professor," growled Orochimaru with a sneer. "What have you done, Orochimaru?" Hiruzen pleaded. "Why did you kill all of those innocents?" "To further my ambition, sensei," said Orochimaru, not bothering to act amused or sarcastic for once. "I want to learn every single jutsu in the world." "You're insane," shouted Sarutobi. "I will be immortal." Orochimaru shouted back, lunging at his sensei, his neck extending like rubber as a long thin blade erupted from his gullet. The sword Kusanagi was Orochimaru's infamous double-edged Jian. The blade extended from its sheath, aiming straight for the Hokage's heart. Sarutobi lifted Enma to block the attack, but was shocked and horrified when the sword pierced Enma's diamond-hard form, forcing the Monkey King out of his transformation. When the smoke cleared, the sword's blade was sticking through Enma's abdomen. Enma grabbed the blade and kept it from growing any longer. "Enma!" cried Sarutobi. "I'm fine, Saru," replied the summon with a pained cough. Orochimaru finished regurgitating the sword, taking the hilt in his hand and yanking it out of Enma. The blade shrank back down to normal, Orochimaru taking a Kenjutsu stance 15 feet from Sarutobi and Enma. "I'm sorry, Hiruzen," said Enma. "It's okay, old friend," said the Hokage. "You can go." Enma nodded and disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Suddenly, Anbu had Orochimaru surrounded. Orochimaru merely grinned and bit his thumb, slamming his palm into the grass. A giant blue snake appeared and coiled around Orochimaru. He latched onto it and the snake burrowed into the ground. "Damn!" shouted Sarutobi, looking around. Suddenly the ground underneath multiple Anbu exploded upward, the snake snapping up some of them in its giant maw, swallowing them whole. Sarutobi looked on in horror as it arched around, grabbing more Anbu as it burrowed down again. Time slowed for the professor when he saw Orochimaru gripping the snake's scales and grinning at him. The angle that the snake was burrowing in told Sarutobi that it was heading straight for the shopping district. With his lab destroyed, Orochimaru was planning on taking as many Konoha citizens with him as he could before escaping. Sarutobi and his 3 remaining Anbu ran for the area, people already in a panic due to the explosion. "Let's get everyone out of here," shouted Sarutobi. "There's too many Hokage-sama," replied an Anbu. "We'll never get them all out in time." Just as they arrived, the snake was coming out of the ground. Sarutobi could only watch as his people tried to avoid the rising ground. Suddenly, Uchigas Yatai Kuzashi no Jutsu. There was a loud popping noise as Gamaken fell from the sky right onto the snake's emerging snout. It hissed in furious pain as the giant toad climbed off of it. When it tried to crawl back underground, Gamaken trapped its head underneath his spiked Sasamata, holding it down as Jiraiya came down from his head to greet Sarutobi. "He's finally gone off the deep end?" asked Jiraiya, turning to watch as Orochimaru scrambled from the damaged road, fuming. "He's murdered hundreds of my people," said Sarutobi with a shaky voice. "I cannot let him leave here alive." "Where's Naruto?" "He's safe," said Jiraiya. He'd made Naruto hide with some other children in a shop. He hoped that the kid wouldn't move, but Naruto was just like him, impulsive. "Jiraiya," growled Orochimaru, holding Kusanagi at the ready. "Why do you dog my every step?" "Because you've gone insane," said the Toad Sage, taking a step towards his teammate turned traitor. "Stop this now and you'll have a chance to repent." "I don't want your retribution," said Orochimaru, sticking his sword in the dirt before running through hand signs and slamming his hand into the ground. Snakes erupted from his sleeves and sped towards Jiraiya and Sarutobi. "I only need my own power. Haten. Enden." Jiraiya spat a massive torrent of flames at the snakes, burning them all on contact. "Oten. Doryu Taiga." Sarutobi ran through hand seals, his jutsu turning the ground beneath Orochimaru's feet into soft mud, pulling him towards his opponents like a river. The Hokage followed it up with another earth jutsu. Doten. Doryuden. The earth next to Sarutobi turned to mud, forming into a giant dragon's head that opened up and released a volley of mud balls at Orochimaru, pelting the snake sage until he was nearly covered. Orochimaru reacted after a few seconds, performing another summoning jutsu. There was a great burst of smoke, and the king of snakes, the purple horn manda appeared. "Orochimaru," it roared. "You dare call on me without notice? For this, I demand 150 human sacrifices. You shall receive," said Orochimaru, hopping onto Manda's head. There was another burst of smoke, and then Jiraiya was standing atop Gamabunta, the toad chief smoking his pipe and regarding Manda with disdain. "Finally," he said. "That snakeskin wallet is mine." "Not today, cur," screamed Manda as the two of them clashed, Manda clamping his jaw down on Gamabunta's sword. Jiraiya and Orochimaru leapt off of the heads of their summons and engaged in a brutal exchange of taijutsu. Naruto had hidden underneath the counter of the store his father had pushed him into, along with two boys about his age and a little girl who appeared to be much older than they were. One boy had pineapple-shaped hairdo and the other was rather pudgy, munching on chips nervously. "Hey," said the girl to Naruto, attempting to distract the frightened boys from the battle outside. "I've seen you in my dad's ramen shop with Jiraiya-sama." "Jiraiya-sama?" Naruto asked before it clicked. "Oh, my dad. Yeah, he's out there fighting right now." "Wow, your dad is Jiraiya of the Sannin." Naruto nodded, glad for the distraction. "I'm scared," said the pudgy boy. "That's a funny name," said the pineapple head, his voice shaking slightly as he tried to tune out the sounds of screaming and destruction. "Shut up, Shikamaru. That's not funny." "I'm Naruto," said the blonde. "I'm Am," said the girl. "My name," the pudgy boy emphasized, "is Chouji." "Shikamaru, what are we gonna do?" asked Chouji, looking at the other kids. "We can't run. I heard Naruto's dad say to stay here." "I think we should run and find out moms," said Shikamaru, burying his face in his knees. "I want my dad," said Naruto, looking like he was on the verge of tears. Am waved her hands in front of them. "No crying," said the older girl. "Let's play a game." "I don't want to," wept Chouji. These boys were not optimistic today. "Let's sing a song then," she said and began to sing a song. "I used to chase rabbits on that mountain. I used to fish for minnow in that river. I still dream of those days even now. Oh, how I miss my hometown." The three boys knew the song. Their mothers would sing it to them sometimes, though Naruto had ma for that. They slowly followed her lead and sang together. Soon the noise quieted and everything went silent. They stopped singing and looked around. They peeked over the counter to the outside window and saw nothing. Naruto, not thinking, ran to the door, assuming the fight was over. He ignored Am screaming his name as he ran out the door. He suddenly saw something out of the corner of his eye and screamed when it came down upon him. Orochimaru was wounded severely, as was Jiraiya. Sarutobi could only look on as the two of them clashed from atop their mammoth summons. If he attempted to approach their battle, he would only get in Jiraiya's way. Gamaken was still wrestling with a smaller snake, pinning it down only for it to break free and try to bite him. Jiraiya leapt back from Orochimaru, nursing a gash on his stomach left by Kusanagi. Orochimaru retreated as well, his body worn down and covered in burns and lacerations, as well as caked on blood and mud. "Now bunta!" shouted Jiraiya. The toad shot a torrent of oil into Manda's face, and Jiraiya followed up with a massive wave of fire. Katen. Gameu Enden. When the flames cleared, it seemed as though they had won, but were unsurprised to see a charred snakeskin rather than a charred snake and a hole in the ground at Gamabunta's feet. Suddenly, the ground rumbled and Gamabunta leapt out of the way as Manda burst from the ground beneath him, fangs ready to bite down on the toads. That's when Gamaken intervened and tackled Manda to the ground. "I've defeated my opponent," said the great red toad, smacking Manda repeatedly with his Sasamata. "Despite my clumsiness." Gamabunta took the opportunity and plunged his sword into Manda's body, getting a loud screeching hiss from the giant snake. Manda spat insults at his enemies before vanishing in a large cloud of smoke. Gamabunta and Gamaken panted heavily, looking around for Orochimaru. "There he is," shouted Sarutobi as the snake sage sped towards the market district. Orochimaru knew he had lost this battle, but there was nothing to be done about it now. He could only retreat and act another day. Besides, he had copies of his plans in the rice country. He would fight another day. Another opportunity always revealed itself. Then that opportunity came. He saw Jiraiya's adopted son run out into the street, unaware that Orochimaru was speeding in his direction. Orochimaru smiled savagely, leaping towards the boy, fangs outstretched. The boy spotted him too late and could only scream. "Naruto!" screamed Jiraiya, trying his best to catch up. He could only look on in pure terror as Orochimaru descended on his beloved child. Then the unthinkable happened. "Don't touch my Naruto!" screamed Tsunade, kicking Orochimaru in the side of the head. The snake sage was caught entirely off guard and was thrown into another building. Orochimaru staggered out, screaming in fury. Before he could lunge at Tsunade he was met with yet another kick to the head. "Dynamic entry!" roared the Jounin Mito guy, appearing on scene. Orochimaru was sent staggering away, his eyes rolled into the back of his head. "Rasengan!" Jiraiya absolutely screamed, driving a spinning blue ball of chakra into the gut of his former friend. Orochimaru screamed and wailed in terrific pain as the ball was driven further and further into his abdomen. Jiraiya was aiming to kill. Suddenly, Orochimaru's eyes snapped into focus and he cackled madly, grabbing the sides of Jiraiya's head. He leaned his head back and opened his mouth. His jaw unhinged and another body shot out from Orochimaru. He had shed his skin, so to speak. Orochimaru took their shock as an opportunity and darted up the building, scaling it as fast as he could in his weakened state. "Valkyrie!" shouted a new voice as the silver-haired Anbu Kakashi buried his lightning-covered hand in Orochimaru's tail. Orochimaru screamed in pain as volts of electricity ran through his system. He rotated his torso 180 degrees to face the young Anbu and began mercilessly punching him in the face, resisting the paralyzing shock of the attack. Kakashi grabbed Orochimaru by the back of the head and pulled him off of the building, the two of them tumbling to the ground below. Orochimaru pushed Kakashi off of him and stood up, his legs returning to normal. He was about to bite his thumb for a summoning jutsu, but froze in place. Hajime no jutsu, said Shikaku Nara from across the street. Complete. His two teammates, Chauza Akimichi and Inoichi Yamanaka, appeared next to him. There was nothing Orochimaru could do. He was completely outnumbered and outgunned, so he stood silently, trapped in the Nara's shadow possession. "Dad!" cried Chueji as he ran out of the shop towards his father, who scooped him up and glared at Orochimaru. "Hey old man," said Shikamaru, running to his own father. "Mind telling us what the hell happened here, Hokage-sama?" asked Inoichi. Tsunade walked up to Orochimaru and punched him squarely in the back of the head, knocking him unconscious. Sarutobi looked at Kakashi and Guy. "Take him for interrogation," said the Hokage. "Let Ibiki have at him." Jiraiya dropped the corpse he had to the ground and turned to Naruto. The boy was crouching, his eyes closed tightly. Jiraiya approached the boy and dropped to his knees, pulling him into a tight embrace. "I can't believe this," said Tsunade, her voice shaking uncontrollably. "He was our friend." "He's not the same man he was." Tsunade, said Sarutobi as he joined his remaining students. "Is Naruto alright?" Jiraiya drew back from his son, who was looking at him and sniffling. "I'm okay," said the child. Jiraiya smiled at him. This kid was strong. "Alright," said Tsunade, refusing to look at the bloody form of Jiraiya or the abandoned corpse. "Let's get you guys to Shizune." "Jiraiya," said Gamabunta. "Let me take Naruto home. He needs some rest. Pa will take care of him." Jiraiya nodded and looked at Naruto, still kneeling in front of him. "Go with Bunta, okay?" he asked. "Alright dad," said Naruto, climbing into Gamabunta's hand. The summons swiftly poofed out of Konoha, taking Naruto with them. "Care to explain, Jiraiya?" asked Shikaku. "I can explain it better," said the Hokage. "All of you, to my office in 1 hour." "Us too, Hokage-sama?" asked Guy as he and Kakashi grabbed Orochimaru, prepared to haul him in for questioning. "I suppose so, Guy," said the Hokage. "Just be quick. I don't want him to wake up anytime soon." "How very unyouthful," said Guy sternly as their body flickered away with the unconscious Anin. An hour later, everyone involved in the fight with Orochimaru aside from Naruto or the other children were packed into Sarutobi's office with a lot of questions. The Hokage ignored their stares as he looked over their individual reports of what had transpired, puffing on his pipe. "Orochimaru," said Sarutobi, "has been officially branded as a traitor to the Leaf. He has been experimenting on our villagers and our shinobi, right under our noses. Hundreds of people have been taken and not a single peep was heard about it. My Anbu began noticing that some familiar faces of the crowds were not showing up anymore and several shinobi were not showing up for their duties. Orochimaru has gotten sloppy with his madness and we were able to track him to his laboratory." "So what?" asked Inoichi Yamanaka. "Did we get anything significant? What was he trying to do?" "Most of his papers and notes were lost when he set off his explosives. We hope that Ibiki and you, Inoichi, will be able to get into his head and find out. What we did find were notes on sealing techniques of the Uzumaki clan and some that I've never seen before. It appears he was marking people and it was altering their chakras somehow, but I just don't know. So what do we plan on doing?" asked Jiraiya. Tsunade stood behind him, her eyes trained downward. "We'll find out from him personally. Inoichi. Get down there and pick his brain apart. The rest of you are dismissed. Take a few days to rest, you all deserve it." The ninjas present nodded and took their leave, aside from Jiraiya, Tsunade and strangely, Kakashi. "Jiraiya-sama," said the young Anbu, his eye the only thing exposed on his face. "Was that child who called you dad?" "Yes," said the sage. "That was your sensei's son. I've adopted him. He seems to be doing well," said Kakashi, turning to leave. "Maybe I'll be able to teach him a few things when he becomes a shinobi." Jiraiya grinned at the idea and turned to face his sensei, his expression dropping when his eyes met the old man's. "Sarutobi-sensei," said Jiraiya. "What do we do now? He was our friend. Our teammate. You don't have to attend the execution," the Hokage said coldly, turning his chair to the window. "Now leave me." Jiraiya turned away, taking Tsunade by the shoulder and leading her out. They did not want to see their sensei cry. Sarutobi took off his hat and set it on the desk behind him and began to weep. "Oh God, Orochimaru," he clenched his teeth and pounded on the arm of his chair. "Where did I go wrong?" When Inoichi got to his department his face went white. The entirety of the place was completely torn apart. Bodies were everywhere. Some of the bodies were utterly burnt up and some were completely torn to shreds. It was a war zone, the evident use of jutsus covering the place. When he finally ran to Orochimaru's holding cell, it was empty, save for his companion Ibiki Marino, who was slumped against the wall, covered in his own blood. His skin was pale, a sure sign that he was on the verge of bleeding out. What the fuck happened? Hissed Inoichi as he began tending to Ibiki's wounds. It looked like Anbu, Ibiki whispered back. But they weren't ours. I have no idea who it was, but they busted him out. Did you find anything? Asked Inoichi. Anything at all? Orochimaru had more labs in Konoha, he gasped out. Some of them have children in them, find them. Ibiki then passed out. When Orochimaru came to, he'd been the guest of Ibiki. The torture he endured was excruciating to say the least. He decided that it would be in his best interest to divulge some minor information. Besides, the only thing they would get would be that Tenzo kid. Orochimaru didn't know whether his experiments on the child worked or not, but he would probably find out soon enough. Besides, as far as Danzo knew, they were a success, and that was enough for the old warhawk to come retrieve him. Orochimaru sat in a chair in the middle of Root headquarters, the home of Danzo's secret legion of Anbu ninjas. Danzo paced back and forth in front of Orochimaru, his cane clacking noisily on the stone floor. So what do you want? Asked the snake sage. You know my price. I want the wood release, and I want the Sharingan. I can give you the wood release, said Orochimaru. But how do you expect me to get you a Sharingan? Even I haven't been able to get an Uchiha to experiment on. I know for a fact, said Danzo, that the Uchiha are planning a coup d'etat on the village. It won't happen for many years to come, but when the time comes and that clan is wiped out, their eyes are ours for the taking. How long? I do not know, said Danzo. But I will remain in contact. I'll smuggle you to Rice Country as soon as you are well enough to travel. How did you know about my base there? Demanded Orochimaru. I know of all your labs, said Danzo. Do not underestimate me, Snake. I have far more resources than Jiraiya. Orochimaru's expression became one of suspicion. He would do well not to piss Danzo off. We have an agreement then, said Orochimaru coldly. When Naruto returned to Mount Myoboku, Gamabunta took him the ma and pa to fill them in on what happened. As soon as they heard about Orochimaru going for the boy, Shima nearly had a breakdown as she clung on to her precious Naruto boy. Naruto had a brave face on, however, and refused to cry as the images came back to him. Of course he wanted to, but he resisted. Shima dragged him to their house so he could be fed. Human food, of course. Fukasaku kicked her out of the kitchen and made Naruto a sandwich from the food Jiraiya had provided. The Toad Sages and Naruto all sat down for a meal together. Gamakin and Gamabunta left for the tavern. Naruto picked at his sandwich for a bit before putting it down. Hey pa, said Naruto abruptly. Who were the guys who beat up the scary one? Those were probably ninjas, Naruto boy, said the elder Toad as he stirred his own pill bug soup. They were strong, said the boy with a slight smile. Ninja are very strong, said Fukasaku, returning his human grandson's smile. Your father is a ninja. The Hokage is a ninja. Even Gamabunta, Ma and I are ninjas. Wow, said Naruto, his eyes full of excitement. I want to be a ninja when I get big. Then I can beat up scary guys all by myself. Fukasaku smiled at the boy. Look at those eyes, he thought to himself. Despite the traumatic events of today, he is determined to overcome. Instead of being afraid, he knew Jiraiya boy was there for him. This is strength. This is what it takes to be a great shinobi. Finish your lunch, Naruto boy, said Fukasaku. And I'll teach you about some of the greatest ninjas who ever lived. When you get older, your father will want to teach you how to be a ninja yourself. Thank you pa. Cheered Naruto as he dug into his sandwich. Orochimaru's escape from Konoha was a complete and utter disaster. No one knew who helped him or why. They found several more labs around the city. The only living thing they found, however, was the boy Tenzo. According to the notes left there, the boy was injected with the first Hokage's cells to see if he could develop the wood release. It was unsure on whether it worked or not, but he was taken to Tsunade's house for medical examinations. The Hokage had word sent to Tsunade and their other allies that Orochimaru was classified as an S-ranked missing nin with a kill on side order. Danzo, of course, blamed it all on Sarutobi's offness, but even the council did not buy that. Danzo was scorned for his accusations and was nowhere to be seen for several days. It was assumed that he was brooding as usual. The Uchiha's military police were put under scrutiny for not reacting immediately to the disaster in the shopping district, but they made the excuse that they were having meetings about conduct and their overall role in the village. The Hokage did not buy it and put pressure on the clan leader Fugaku Uchiha to either try harder or be disbanded as a liability. Fugaku did not take kindly to the threat and spent following council meetings almost silent, glaring at the others in the room. The only true bright spot in the Uchiha's current reputation was that Fugaku's son Itachi had graduated from the academy at the top of his class at the age of 7. He was currently the youngest genin in the village, as well as one of the most skilled and talented. Jiraiya didn't make it home for 2 weeks. He'd been scouring the country for any sign of Orochimaru, but came back with his hands empty and his mood sour. He was happily surprised to see Naruto studying the history of ninjutsu with Fukasaku. Apparently the toad had caught the boy's interest with a reward of instant ramen every time the boy listened to his lectures and was able to absorb the information given to him. Jiraiya decided then that starting next year, Naruto's training would begin. It was summer in Konoha, 9 years after Orochimaru's defection. The sun was shining in the early morning, the heat was visible over the dirt roads of the village. A perfect day for a dip in the local hot springs, and one boy was taking advantage. Naruto Uzumaki, 11 years old, was perched on the back of a massive orange toad, his eye peering through a hole in a wooden fence as he scribbled notes furiously into a bright orange notebook. He wore orange robes with a blue flame pattern that fell around his knees when he stood straight, with a mesh undershirt, blue pants and sandals. On his forehead he wore a pair of dark goggles, and on his shoulder was a black book bag. Another, smaller toad was perched on his forehead. "Naruto," said Gamakichi from atop his head. "What time is it? Dad's gonna love these," he said, grinning lecherously. The toad croaked in return, looking through a hole of its own. Gamakichi's statement registered in his pubescent brain, and he looked down at his watch. His expression soured. "Shit, I'm gonna be late." He punched the toad in the head and closed his book. "Come on Gama," he said. "Gimme a ride." "I ain't a horse," said the toad. "But I want to make a good impression." "Kid, you're too noisy to make a good impression on anyone. When I first saw you, you were wailing like a baby." "I was a baby, you asshole," shouted Naruto. "What was that?" screeched a voice from within the hot springs. "Crap," wailed Naruto, shoving his things into his bag. "Let's get out of here." He leapt off of Gama and ran up the wall of the nearest building, using his chakra as a foothold. After he made it to the top of the building, he made a run for it, leaping from rooftop to rooftop towards the Great Hokage Monument and the academy underneath. When the enraged women made it around the side of the building, there was nothing there but a giant toad that looked incredibly nervous. "Ribbit," it said awkwardly. "The peeper must have gotten away," shouted one of the women, running down the street in search of anyone who looked suspicious. The Hokage watched Naruto's antics from his crystal ball, a look of distaste on his features. "Like father like son," said the old ninja, glaring up at his former student. "What?" said Jiraiya, sipping a cup of tea from the chair across from Sarutobi's desk. "He's just expressing himself as a young man. Nothing to worry about. I hope he didn't inherit your knack for grand entrances." Jiraiya didn't say a word. "What have you got, Jiraiya?" "I've got intel saying Orochimaru has bases in the land of Rice. I think that might be a red light because Rice has a hidden village now. A Togaker. I don't like it. Have we contacted Odo?" "We can't. We don't know where they are and the Rice daimyo refuses to speak on the matter." "Disturbing," mumbled Sarutobi, puffing his pipe. "Well, if that's all, the apartment you requested for yourself and Naruto is set up near my mansion." "Thanks, sensei." Sarutobi leaned forward and looked at his student. "How has Naruto's training progressed? You insisted on him entering the class halfway through the year and so damn late. He'd better have some skill." "His chakra control is passable," said Jiraiya. "He can tree climb and walk on water, but it's still not enough for him to make a working clone. All of his get too much chakra pumped into them and end up looking like retarded ragdolls. Can he perform any jutsus at all? His kawarimi and his hinges are spot on. He even made one up, a distraction tactic called the sexy jutsu." "I don't want to know," said Sarutobi. "Anything else?" "His chakra is massive, as you've likely heard from Tsunade. He can summon Gamabunta without too much of a drain. I learned early on that he's a wind type." "Like Asuma?" "Yes, but Naruto only knows one wind jutsu. He also knows Toad Oil Bullet." "How's his taijutsu?" "He developed a unique style that emulates the toad's and is suited for his lack of height. You probably noticed him crouching instead of sitting. That's his taijutsu stance. He's got a ton of leg strength for someone his age, and he utilizes it. He only uses his hands for weapons and defense." "Impressive," said Sarutobi, leaning forward with interest. "Yeah," said Jiraiya. "Like father like son." "Alright class," said the Chunin instructor Iruka Yamino to a classroom full of wannabe shinobi. They noticed he sounded especially agitated. "We were supposed to have a new student today, but he hasn't shown up yet, so I guess we'll have to start without." Suddenly an orange blur came crashing in through the open door and slammed right into Iruka, sending the teacher stumbling into the wall. The newcomer hopped onto Iruka's desk in a crouching position with one arm over his head, his elbow bent and his hand outstretched. His other arm was pointed towards the class and his hand was open. Then some fireworks in his sleeves went off and confetti shot out. Everyone was silent, staring at the new kid in abject horror as Iruka climbed to his feet and began shouting. "Naruto!" screamed Iruka. "Don't just come barreling in at high speeds and knock me around. I'm your sensei for God's sake. Now clean this up." "I think he's talking to you Naruto," whispered Gamakichi, but Naruto refused to come out of his pose, a determined frown on his face. Naruto suddenly moved. His arms began to rotate slowly around his body until they were in opposite positions of where they'd started. "The great sage Naruto Uzumaki has arrived." he shouted. Haruka then punched him in the back of the head and sent him sprawling. Just sit down. Naruto stepped up the stairs to the desks, growling indignantly until he found an open seat next to a kid with a blue shirt and a haircut that distinctly resembled the backside of a duck. But Naruto wasn't rude enough to comment on it. He hopped up onto the chair and squatted down, balancing on his toes. The class began chattering again, mostly talking about the weird new kid with the frog on his head. "Tough crowd," mumbled Naruto. "Yeah, you're telling me," said Gamakichi. "I thought it was perfect." "Quiet," said Haruka, silencing the class. He began to give roll call. He went through all the names on the list, Naruto finding some of the names a bit familiar, but since he'd lived on Myoboku, he didn't really know anyone from the village other than the owner of the ramen shop he and his dad frequented. It was Naruto's favorite and he begged for it every time they came down. "Haruno," said Haruka, looking around. "That's odd, Sakura's never late. Ino's gone too." Naruto wondered who Haruka was talking about until a dark evil presence suddenly washed over him. He could sense it coming, but no one in the room seemed to respond to it. As it came closer, he could feel another evil presence. Then he heard it. "Get the hell away from me, Ino pig," screamed the terrifying voice from down the hall. The boy next to Naruto only sighed and rolled his eyes. "You first, forehead bitch," screamed another voice. Suddenly a girl with pink hair and a pink dress burst in from the hallway and gave a cry for victory, running up the steps to the desks. Another girl, blonde with blue eyes and a purple outfit came barreling in, charging after the pink-haired girl. The first girl almost went barreling right into Naruto, but was met with resistance when she felt the bottom of a sandal meet her forehead. She fell backwards into the blonde and they both went crashing to the floor. "Hey jerk," shouted the pinkette. "Get out of my chair." "No, that's my seat, forehead," said the blonde. "I called it." Forehead spun around on the blonde before Naruto spoke up. "What's so special about this chair?" he asked, looking down at it and around it. "Are there special seals to make it more comfy or something?" "You idiot," said Forehead, rounding on him. "I just want to sit with Sasuke-kun." Naruto looked at the boy next to him and assumed that this was Sasuke. Naruto looked back at her with a questioning glance. "Does he have special seals on him or something?" The girl proceeded to punch him in the head and Gamakichi had to jump onto the desk to avoid it. "What the hell was that for?" screamed Naruto, raising his fist to deck the girl. "Sakura," shouted Haruka. "Stop being a brat and go sit down by Hinata. Ino, sit by Kiba. Naruto, I won't have you hitting girls in the classroom." Naruto tried to protest but was ignored by the sensei. Sakura and Ino took seats in different parts of the classroom and he could feel their gazes boring into the back of his skull all day. Today was off to a great start. "You okay, buddy?" asked Naruto, looking down at Gamakichi. "The girls here are scary," said Gamakichi, shaking with fear. The first part of class was about the history of the village and the tactics used by many shinobi of the past. Naruto pulled out a second notebook and began taking some notes. Haruka seemed to notice and smiled at him. Naruto grinned back, but not because he was a good student, but because he was ranking the girls in the class based on looks and to help him predict which ones would develop the soonest. Later, it was time for kunai and shuriken practice. Naruto went outside with the rest of the class and when they made it to the target area, he crouched in the shade and put his goggles on over his eyes, relaxing until it was his turn. The field was set up with multiple human-shaped targets with vital areas marked. He watched the class take turns. The Sakura girl had okay aim but didn't manage to hit the bullseye on the targets. Ino was average as well. Naruto didn't really care, he just enjoyed watching girls. The kid named Shikamaru didn't even try. His shuriken and kunai mostly hit the legs. The fat kid Chouji was average. Kiba, the kid with the hood and the puppy in his shirt, had pretty good aim. One of his kunai hit the bull's eye and two of his shurikens did as well. A cute girl he identified as being in the Hyuga clan did the same as Kiba. She looked over at him and blushed, ducking back into the crowd. Eventually, after a ton of other kids went, it was Naruto's turn. He stood up straight and gazed at his target from beneath his goggles, Gamakichi coaching him from atop his head with supporting words. He tossed his shuriken one at a time, two hitting the bull's eye at the heart of the target dummy and one in the shoulder. He tossed his shuriken and one of them hit the head, worth extra points, while the others hit the shoulder and neck. "Good job, Naruto," said Haruka. Naruto gave the sensei a grin and a thumbs up that reminded him too much of Mido guy. Next is Sasuke. Sasuke Uchiha walked up to the field, pulling out his 3 kunai. He threw them all simultaneously and they hit the bull's eye without a hitch. The same happened for his shuriken. "Oh Sasuke-kun," cheered the majority of the girls in their class. Naruto gave a sneer to the fangirls and decided to congratulate Sasuke. "Nice job, man," said Naruto, walking up to the other boy. "Where'd you learn to throw like that?" "I taught myself," replied Sasuke, not looking at Naruto as he retrieved his things from the dummies. "We should train together sometime," Naruto said with a grin. "I work better alone." "You sure?" My ma and pa always told me that working together was how ninjas worked. I don't work with losers, snapped Sasuke. Naruto made a noise of frustration that sounded more like a croak than anything. Hey, I'm just trying to be friendly. He yelled, stamping his feet in the dirt and waving his arms over his head. And that's why you're a loser. And I don't work with losers. Yeah. Said Sakura, moving in front of Naruto. Losers like you. Now get lost. Naruto simply frowned at the girl, his eyes showing that she had dealt a nasty blow. Don't listen to her, Naruto, said Gamakichi, realizing that his friend's feelings had been severely hurt. She doesn't know what she's talking about. You. A slimy frog. She screeched. Gamakichi's expression changed to match Naruto's perfectly. Naruto then turned around and ran away from them. Wow, said Kiba, walking over to where they were standing. That was horrible. Why did you shoot him down like that? Because he was being a pest. Said Sakura. Right, Sasuke-kun. Sasuke ignored them and walked away. You didn't even know the guy and you called him a loser? Said Chaoji, walking past them with his kunai and shuriken in hand. Really cold. Sakura faltered. It's not my fault. She claimed. The other students aside from Sasuke and the ones who didn't see them verbally abuse the new kid only shook their heads and walked away from her coldly. Alright guys, called Iruka from the door to the academy. You can go inside and get your things, then meet back here for lunch. After that, it's chakra control exercises. Naruto sat underneath a large oak tree in the field with a swing hanging down from one of the branches, doing his best not to cry. His first day and he blew it. Now everyone hated him. He knew the confetti was a terrible idea. Gamakichi was sitting in his lap, sniffling and wiping tears from his eyes. That stupid girl. Mumbled Gamakichi. I'm a toad, not a frog. And it's not slime. It's mucus. Naruto nodded in confirmation. What does she know? He mumbled, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. Hey, said Kiba, the kid with the puppy and face paint. Mind if I have lunch with you? Naruto nodded and moved over for the other boy, who sat down and set out a dish of dog food for his puppy and pulled out a sandwich for himself. I'm Kiba, he said. And this is my partner Akamaru. The puppy yapped in greeting and began to munch happily on its food. I'm Naruto, said the blonde. And this is my partner Gamakichi. Gamakichi waved pathetically, his feelings still hurt. Can we sit with you guys? Asked Shikamaru, the boy with the pineapple head, standing next to them carrying his lunch bag. Chaoji was with him, already munching on a bag of chips. Come on down, said Kiba cheerily. Akamaru barked his agreement. At least some people here are nice, sniffed Gamakichi as everyone joined them. Naruto reached into his book bag and pulled out the lunch Ma had made for him and Gamakichi. She had learned, eventually, that Naruto could not live off of insects alone, so she ended up learning to cook human food. While she didn't care for it, her talent with cooking crossed over well. As a special first day of school meal, she included a frog-shaped bento box with yakitori, spicy potato, scrambled egg on brown rice, and iyakin, some orange slices and a big bag of homemade candies. Her Gamakichi was a much smaller bento with grilled crickets and the like. Naruto passed around some of his candies and they all ate together, getting to know each other, laughing and joking amongst themselves. Wait, said Kiba, waving his hands in front of him. You're saying you spent your whole life until now, living with giant toads? Yup, said Naruto proudly. Me and Gamakichi have been buddies since he sprouted legs. My dad is the Toad Chief, said Gamakichi, holding his head up high. Did you live off of bugs? Asked Chaoji with a look of disgust. Naruto laughed at the look on his face. Ma tried to force him on me, but dad and pa wouldn't let her. Wait, so the ma and pa you mentioned to Sasuke are toads too? Asked Shikamaru with a raised eyebrow. That had to be troublesome. Nah, said Naruto. My dad kept me away from bugs. He made ma learn to cook real food. Stop saying that, said Gamakichi with a huff. Our food is good. That's offensive. Is your dad a toad? Asked Kiba. Nah, he's a shinobi from Konoha, said Naruto. They accepted his answer and they went back to eating their lunch and talking about each other. Kiba was from a clan that raised dogs and partnered with them like Kiba and Akamaru. Shikamaru was from a clan that controlled shadows, raised deer and made medicine. Chaoji's clan ate a lot. Naruto's mood improved immensely after lunch with his new friends and, after switching to a seat near Kiba in class, the rest of the day went off without a hitch. He did the chakra control exercises without complaining since he knew he needed to work on it. After school, he said goodbye to his new friends and ran home to the apartment that Jiraiya had landed for them. He burst in through the front door and tossed his bag on the couch in the front room. It wasn't an extravagant place, despite Jiraiya's apparent wealth thanks to the success of his first 2 novels, but it was their new home. It was modestly furnished with a good-sized television and 2 bedrooms. Apparently the Hokage did not want them just poofing from Konoha to Mount Myoboku on a daily basis and insisted they take up residence in the village. After a lot of tears from Ma, hugs to Pa, Gamma Bunta, Gamma Hero and a recommendation to avoid ungraceful behavior from Gammakin, as well as a party at Gammakin's tavern, they had returned to the Leaf permanently. Jiraiya noticed straight away that no one seemed to recognize Naruto for who he was and took it as a blessing. He didn't want Naruto walking around alone and suddenly noticing that everyone was glaring at him. "Dad, are you here?" he called. "In here," Jiraiya called back from his own bedroom. When Naruto entered the room, Jiraiya was looking through a telescope at the hot springs below. "I think the old man put us here on purpose." "Let me look," said Naruto, bouncing on his heels. "Wait your goddamn turn," shouted Jiraiya as they began fighting over the telescope. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. "Shit," hissed Jiraiya. "Hide the telescope. And our notes." "Why?" Naruto hissed back. "It's Tsunade." "Oh shit. Yeah. I know." The two of them then scrambled to put away any incriminating evidence and then closed the blinds in Jiraiya's bedroom. Naruto yanked out his homework and pretended to be doing it. Jiraiya looked on proudly at his little sneak. They grew up so fast. Before Jiraiya could open the door, Tsunade kicked it open. "What the hell was taking so long, you old pervert?" she demanded. Even at the age of 50, she retained her beauty. Sure, it could be attributed to a henge, but no one should ever say that out loud. "We were doing homework," said Jiraiya. "Bullshit. I'm breaking that telescope." She sat down next to Naruto and turned to face him. "So how was your first day, brat?" she asked. "Well," he said. "It started out a little rough. No one liked the dynamic entry me and dad practiced." Tsunade shot Jiraiya an evil glare as he tried to sneak off. "Then that Sasuke kid called me a loser and this pink-haired girl made fun of me," he said, avoiding her gaze. A vein appeared on her forehead. "But then a bunch of the kids ate lunch with me and Gamakichi. They were really nice." Tsunade smiled at her surrogate nephew and ruffled his hair. "Well, if the mean kids ever come to my clinic I'll make sure they leave for the hospital." Naruto grinned and started on his homework. Tsunade remained there for a few hours, drinking Jiraiya's liquor and talking to Naruto and Jiraiya about events around the village. Eventually she hugged Naruto, who resisted the urge to cop a feel, like his dad had coached him to, and staggered out of the apartment. After dinner with Jiraiya, Naruto turned in for the night. Gamakichi got permission from Gamma Bunta to stay with him and he slept in a box on Naruto's bedside table. The next day they got up, long before Jiraiya did, and showered. Gamakichi sat on the soap shelf in the tub and sang to himself. They had a quick breakfast of ramen and grubs and then headed out, Jiraiya's snoring still wafting out of his bedroom. Naruto got to school on time that day and sat down without too much of a commotion. He sat next to Kiba in his usual crouch and listened to Iruka while taking more notes on the girls of the class. Sakura and Ino got there on time as well, still screaming at each other. Iruka seemed to just tune them out. Ino won the seat next to Sasuke and Sakura sat next to Ino, fuming. That day at lunch, he sat with Kiba, Shikamaru and Choji, but they were later joined by Shino of the bug-using Aburam clan, a boy of few words but many opinions. Hinata Hyuga was very shy but was coaxed over by Kiba when they caught her watching from the distance. Naruto grinned at all the new friends he seemed to be making. Sakura, on the alternate side of things, saw that everyone was beginning to ignore her for the way she jumped on Naruto the day before. She watched them all eating lunch together and resigned herself to eating alone. This went on for several weeks. Naruto's knowledge of general tactics and overall chakra control increased and he and his friends from class became more comfortable with each other. Hinata even stopped blushing long enough to share some fun stories about outings with her family. Eventually they were approached by someone they didn't expect. "Hey," said Sakura, standing awkwardly away from the group. "Hey," said Shikamaru. "Listen," said Sakura, avoiding everyone's gazes. "I'm really sorry about before, Naruto. Would you wait so long?" Kiba started to shout at her, but Naruto cut her off. "It's okay," he said. "Are you sure?" she said, looking at him. "Yeah," he said. "You can sit down with us if you want, right guys?" Amakichi refused to look at Sakura. "I'm not a frog," he said resolutely. "What?" she asked. "I'm not a frog. I'm a toad. And I'm not slimy." He turned around on Naruto's head and stared at her harshly. "I want to hear you say it." He shot at her. "You're not a frog," she said. "You're a toad. And you're not slimy. And I'm sorry." "Works for me," said Gamakichi, looking at everyone else. "What do you guys think?" Everyone traded glances and nodded, making room for Sakura. So, she joined their lunch group every day. Later, Choji and Shikamaru convinced Ino to eat with them since she usually ate in the classroom and despite her bickering with Ino, it was all put aside as the 9 of them would sit down underneath the oak tree in the training field to eat, laugh and play together. From his desk in the classroom, Sasuke Uchiha looked out the window down at the large group inside, going back to his lunch and doing his best to ignore their laughter. After lunch it was time for Taijutsu practice. They'd only been given it as homework since Naruto had gotten there and he'd been practicing with Gamma. Now it was time to practice with people his own age. He watched other matches before him, everyone was using a similar style, probably provided by the academy. Nothing truly impressive, though he noted that Kiba was rather vicious. Taoji was using a mainly defensive style that worked for him. Sakura was crap at Taijutsu. Hinata's gentle fist looked scary as hell with her Byakugan eyes turned on, and the fact that it was aiming for all the most vital areas of the human body. Her opponent ended up very numb. Shikamaru forfeited. Naruto didn't really understand his deal. Next it was Naruto, and he was being paired up with Sasuke. Naruto left Gamakichi in the care of Kiba. Naruto was still upset with the boy for being so mean to him, so when they made it to the ring, he just stared at him, croaking noises coming from the bottom of his throat as he tried to contain his anger. "Sasuke, Naruto," said Iruka. "Bow and give the sign of goodwill, then you can start on my mark." Naruto and Sasuke complied half-heartedly. "I'll show you who's the loser," growled Naruto. Sasuke just grunted. As soon as Iruka told them to go, Sasuke took his stance, but Naruto stayed in his crouching position. "Take your stance," said the raven-haired boy. "I'm already in my stance, asshole," said Naruto, shaking his fists about. Sasuke rolled his eyes and charged at Naruto. Naruto's eyes went wide and a look of concentration came over his face as he suddenly jumped higher than anyone expected, leaping right over Sasuke with his legs out in a near split. He landed behind Sasuke in his crouching position, with his hands out at his sides. Sasuke turned around and grunted in irritation, running at him again. Naruto waited for him to get there and ducked under a punch, extending his legs and driving his head and by extension his goggles into Sasuke's gut. Sasuke was knocked back, not expecting that as Naruto jumped to his full height and came at him with a combination of swift kicks. Sasuke did his best to block the blows, but they had a bit of force behind them. Sasuke managed to get his bearing and caught Naruto's leg, swinging him around and tossing him away. Naruto rolled backwards and caught himself leaping forwards and running at Sasuke low to the ground. He then jumped up with a roundhouse kick that was blocked and followed up with a few more sweeps and lunges. Sasuke shoved Naruto's leg to the ground and tried to hit him with a swift jab, but it was dodged and Sasuke narrowly avoided a knee to the gut. Naruto then swept Sasuke's legs out from under him and went to nail him in the chest with an axe kick. Sasuke rolled out of the way and leapt to his feet. This kid was surprisingly strong. Sasuke hadn't landed a hit yet and the kid managed to hit him once. Now that Sasuke knew his style, they were quite evenly matched. Sasuke wouldn't take this sitting down. He was the strongest. He knew it and he wouldn't let anyone prove to him otherwise. He ran in at Naruto and jumped over a leg sweep, his foot shooting out and landing right in between Naruto's eyes. Naruto went stumbling back and landed on his rear end. Sasuke ran through hand seals and Naruto's eyes widened. This wasn't an ninjutsu test. Naruto ran through hand seals of his own when he realized what technique Sasuke was using. He'd seen his dad use it plenty of times. "Haten. Nkakik no jutsu." Sasuke shouted as a great fireball burst from his lips and sped at Naruto. "Ton. Tatapa," shouted Naruto, thrusting his palms forward as a great gust of wind struck the fireball, causing it to explode in the middle of the ring. "That's enough," shouted Iruka, jumping in between them. "This is a taijutsu test, not a ninjutsu test. Sasuke, that's points off for losing your cool like that. I'm very disappointed in you. Naruto, you pass, your taijutsu is very impressive." As they went back to the classroom, Naruto couldn't help but look at Sasuke and see the boy was giving him a vicious glare. Naruto stuck his tongue out at him and started dancing. Sasuke rolled his eyes and returned to class. That wasn't the last time they fought in taijutsu class. Every other time they fought it ended up with similar results. It got too vicious and Iruka had to call them off. At least they both had an A in the class. 2 months later, Naruto had become very close with his classmates since he'd arrived at the academy. He may not have been there as long, but he still enjoyed it. He also learned a lot of things from them as well. Kiba taught him a bit about tracking, Ino taught him about flowers, at least when the colors were enough to catch his interest. Shino tended to avoid Naruto when he was with Gamakichi due to an incident where Gamakichi was caught snacking on Shino's bugs during a friendly visit to the Aburam compound. Sakura, as an added apology, taught Naruto a bit more chakra control, but no matter what they did, he still couldn't do a proper bunshin jutsu. They were all gathered at Chaoji's favorite barbecue place when the matter came up. "Really Naruto," said Ino, waving her chopsticks at him from across the table. "You can't have chakra control that's that terrible. You can already walk on water. My dad says I have trouble when it comes to bunshin because I have to mold my chakra a certain way and I always put in way too much." He said they were like retarded ragdolls. "Your dad sounds like a funny guy," said Kiba. "Who is he anyway?" "Jiraiya of the Sannin," said Naruto, picking his meat off of the grill in the middle of the table. Everyone froze. "Wait," said Shikamaru. "Your dad, Naruto's dad is Jiraiya the Toad Sage." Naruto nodded with a mouthful of meat. "How did you guys not get that?" asked Gamakichi, wondering just how dumb Konoha ninjas were. I never really thought about it, said Hinata quietly. None of us did, said Choji with a mouthful of food. You guys are retarded, said Sakura. I realized it when he talked about his life with the toads. So if your dad is a legendary ninja, said Shikamaru, ignoring Sakura's jab. How come you aren't better? I mean, I get that you can already walk on trees and water, that's something none of us can do, but still. Dad says my chakra control sucks because I have too much chakra to work with, said Naruto. And he only taught me 2 jutsus besides the Academy 3. He refuses to teach me anymore until I become a genin. Why? He said he doesn't want to waste his time when he could be doing research for his next book. Excuse me, said a voice from the next table over. It was a masked jounin with gray hair and his forehead protector over one of his eyes. Did you say Jiraiya-sama is working on a new book? Yup, said Naruto. I'm helping with the research, but he said it won't be done for another few years. The scarecrow-like ninja nodded sagely and returned to his meal. Anyway, said Ino. You need to finish learning the Bunshin if you ever want to pass the Genin exams. 4 months later. Come on dad. Shouted Naruto. I need to learn the Bunshin in 3 days if I want to pass the exams, but I just can't do it. Naruto had been begging Jiraiya for hours to teach him the Bunshin technique, but Jiraiya refused, telling Naruto repeatedly that it was his own fault for having so much chakra. Jiraiya told him this while writing on a large scroll with his ink brush. They were in the kitchen at the dinner table, Naruto pacing around across from his father. Dad, would you quit writing your book for 10 minutes and help me please? Naruto pleaded, falling on his knees on the verge of tears. Calm down brat, said Jiraiya sternly. I'm not writing my damn book. I'm helping. Jiraiya pushed the scroll to Naruto's side of the table. Naruto stood up and started reading the scroll. This is a forbidden jutsu Naruto, said Jiraiya. But since you have such an amazing dad, I figured I'd throw you a bone. The Kage Bunshin. Naruto looked up at Jiraiya with a wide grin. Has anyone seen Naruto? Choji asked Kiba as he and Shikamaru met the Inyazuka outside of the academy. He didn't show up to school at all yesterday or the day before. I know, said Kiba. And today is the exams. He's only been here half a year, it would really suck to have to repeat the academy classes. I know, said Shikamaru with a yawn. Which is why I intend to do the bare minimum. Maybe he's just been trying to get the Bunshin down, said Kiba. I'm sure he'll have gotten it today. Nope, said Naruto as appeared on the wall bordering the school grounds, crouching on the edge as he slurped noisily at a cup of ramen. Bunshin sucks. I got something better. The hell does that mean? Asked Kiba. I know you're smart Naruto, but you ain't passing without the Bunshin. I'm not gonna spoil the surprise. Hissed Naruto, hopping off of the wall without spilling his soup. I like surprises, said Gamakichi from his perch on Naruto's head. Well it sure as hell isn't your birthday, said Shikamaru. Let's just get inside, it's freaking dull out here. You have no appreciation for nature, said Naruto as they entered their classroom. I appreciate clouds, said Shikamaru. That's because that's all you've got in between those ears of yours, said Ino from her desk at the front of the room. If I wanted a woman's opinion, said Shikamaru, taking a seat at the top of the stairs. I'd get yelled at by my mom. Kiba made a whipping noise with his teeth as he and Naruto started shoving each other for a spot in the aisle. Akamaru leapt out of Kiba's jacket and latched onto Naruto's chin, getting a squeal of pain from the blonde. Kiba fell down the stairs laughing. When he finally got his bearings and finished coughing up a lung, he saw that Naruto was crouching on the desk and holding Akamaru by the scruff of his neck, glaring menacingly at the puppy that just wagged its tail and yapped. Let go of him. Shouted Kiba, tackling Naruto off of the desk. Gamakichi hopped off of Naruto onto the desk next to Akamaru as the two of them watched Naruto and Kiba fight. The two of them wrestled on the floor, scattering chairs everywhere. Would you two shut the hell up? Screeched Sakura, punching them both in the heads before taking a seat at the front of the room. Apparently she didn't appreciate coming into a war zone that early in the morning. The two of them sat down in seats next to each other, Kiba winning the aisle seat after a heated duel of rock paper scissors. Sasu came in a few minutes later and took a seat near the back of the class. Sakura and Ino got into a big fuss about who would sit next to him until Kiba shouted at them to just sit on either side of him. It then turned into a fight over who would sit on what side. Eventually Sasu got sick of it and sat in the corner, blocked off by 2 other potential genin named Gento and an unfortunately named boy, Haim. No one really associated with him because who wanted to sit near a kid named Princess. Eventually Aruka and another chunin named Mizuki came in and took a seat behind a table put in the room for the exams. The teachers went through the details of the exam. First would be a written test, then a kunai and shuriken toss, then it would be a taijutsu match against Mizuki, and after that would be the test of the Academy 3 ninjutsu, the henge, the kouremi, and the bunshin. Naruto had a bit of trouble on the written portion of the exam because, as mentioned before, he was more concerned with rating the girls in class than paying attention. Fukaku's lessons from his young age paid off though, and he passed with a C+. He knew the basic history of Konoha, and he made for a good tactician, but his strong suit was heat-of-the-moment action, not planned attacks. It was the math that nearly killed him. Even Jiraiya sucked at math, and Fukasaku and Shima had no idea what algebra was. Naruto struggled through it but came out with a pass, and that was good enough for him. The weapons portion was passed with flying colors for Naruto. He managed to hit all of the vital areas, except for his shuriken toss, in which one of them just missed and hit the target in the gut. He came out with an A. In his Taijutsu match with Mizuki he caught the Chunin off guard with his Toad style. He landed a few good hits on Mizuki, but lost when he was hit in the back of the neck and ended up rolling around on the ground in pain. Mizuki helped him up and apologized. "Sorry Naruto-kun," said Mizuki. "I had to finish you off so the others could get a turn." "It's fine sensei," said Naruto, nursing the back of his neck. Kolda just surrendered. Mizuki and Naruto shared a bit of a laugh as he ran back to his friends. Mizuki-sensei seemed like a nice guy. When it came to the ninjutsu, Naruto decided to play around a bit. The Kourami was done perfectly, he replaced himself with Sasuke. "Interesting Naruto," said Iruka as the students switched back, glaring hotly at each other. "If you applied that in battle and switched with an opponent without them noticing, you could kill them with their own technique. I would not recommend doing it against someone stronger than you though, they could kill you in mid-switch." Naruto grinned and nodded at his sensei. "Okay," said Iruka. "Now transform into me and do your best to get me perfectly." Naruto grinned before shouting sexy jutsu. In the puff of smoke he was definitely Iruka, except this Iruka was naked, had a much longer ponytail and was a woman. A very well-endowed woman. "Hey Mizuki-senpai," said Naruto seductively. "How do you like my sexy nose scar?" Mizuki fell out of his chair, choking on his coffee, but had to get in the way when Iruka tried to charge at Naruto. "Naruto, I'll kill you for that." The teacher wailed over the uproarious laughter of his students. "Calm down Iruka," said Mizuki, trying to contain his laughter. "It was just a joke." Naruto returned to normal and sniggered with delight. When Iruka calmed down, he was beet red and sat back down noisily. "You passed that one in my book Naruto," said Mizuki. Iruka nodded and ordered Naruto to do a bunshin, with no funny business. Naruto nodded and did the wrong hand sign. A normal clone jutsu was done with the ram, snake and tiger hand signs. Naruto only crossed his forefingers. With a poof, 4 copies appeared next to him. "Naruto," said Iruka slowly, his eyes going wide. "Are those shadow clones? Why don't you throw a shuriken and find out?" asked Naruto with a grin. Mizuki pulled one out and looked at Iruka for permission. Iruka nodded and Mizuki threw the weapon. What they didn't know was that Naruto was wearing pads with metal plates in between them under his shirt. He'd put them on as everyone gathered into the classroom for the ninjutsu test. The clone felt the impact but didn't disappear. Instead it clutched at the kunai and fell to the floor, eyes rolling into the back of its head. "What did you do?" screamed the real Naruto. "Shit." Both instructors cried at the same time. Then Naruto fell to the floor laughing, dissipating the clones, the shuriken clattering to the floor. "I can't believe you guys fell for that." Naruto gasped. He suddenly felt a shadow over him as both Chunins appeared, their faces shadowed as they cracked their knuckles. Naruto chuckled pathetically as he prepared for quite the lecture. "I can't believe you Naruto," growled Kiba as he, Naruto and the rest of their group sat gathered outside for lunch. "You learned a B-rank forbidden jutsu and the first thing you did with it was pull a prank. And you still passed. Good work." All of them had passed, including Sasuke, and were wearing their shiny new forehead protectors on different parts of their bodies. It looked as though Naruto and Choji Kiba and Shino were the only ones wearing them on their foreheads though. Naruto had moved his favorite goggles around his neck. He figured they would be useful later on. He was just ecstatic to finally be a ninja, as was everyone else in the group. After they were awarded their forehead protectors, Iruka informed them that they had a week to themselves before Genin teams were assigned a jounin instructor. He then dismissed them with a heartfelt goodbye and released them. Almost everyone was greeted by their parents, aside from Naruto, as he knew Jiraiya had a meeting with the Hokage and decided to stick around the field at lunch. All of his friends decided to hang out with him for a while longer. Sasuke was eating his lunch in the classroom before going home. Naruto cackled evilly, despite the red mark on his cheek where Iruka had decked him. The look on their faces was priceless, he said, munching on a bag of chips he'd bought before school. "Yes," said Shino. "You did manage to pass." "Why you ask?" "Because despite your foolishness, you showed excellent skills in distracting maneuvers and planning ahead." "Dad helped me with the planning," said Naruto, brushing crumbs off of his robes. It got on Gamakichi, who was in his lap, and the little toad hopped over to the middle of their circle. "Jiraiya, the legendary ninja and toad sage," said Ino, eating her sushi while lying on her stomach in the grass. "Total class act. And a pervert," said Sakura. "He got caught spying on the women in the hot springs yesterday." "How'd you hear about that?" asked Ino. I was freaking there, said Sakura, shaking her head. With my mother. So that's why you punched me this morning, said Naruto, rubbing his head. I punched you because you're a loud-mouthed idiot, she snapped. I should punch you again for living with that excuse of a ninja. That wasn't nice, said the shinobi in question, crouching on a tree branch above them, looking genuinely hurt. Hey dad. Said Naruto. All of his friends looked a bit starstruck. None of them had met one of the legendary Sannin before. He flashed his brand new forehead protector to the sage. Look. I'm a ninja now. Hey punk, said Jiraiya. Congrats. Now give me some of those chips. At your own you damn mooch. Why you? Jiraiya leapt down from the tree and grabbed Naruto in a chokehold, grabbing the chips and dumping them into his mouth. Damn it dad. Shouted Naruto. That's my freaking lunch. Technically, they're mine since you bought them with the allowance money I gave you. Stop complaining Naruto, said Sakura. I'm on a diet. All I've eaten today was a bowl of spinach leaves and an orange. That's disgusting, said Jiraiya, shaking some chips from the bag in Sakura's direction. A woman who doesn't get her 2,000 calories ends up with a flat chest and no hips. Sakura blushed furiously and covered herself. I'll kill you. She screeched, throwing her backpack at Jiraiya, who blocked with Naruto's face. What do you even want? Choked Naruto. Well, of course I came to congratulate you guys on becoming Genin, said Jiraiya, releasing Naruto and giving him back his chips. I didn't realize how many friends you've made. Are you guys the only graduates? That asshole Sasuke Uchiha passed too, said Kiba, taking a swig from his water bottle. Oh, so the last Uchiha is in your class Naruto? Asked Jiraiya, looking down at his son. Last? Said Naruto, looking up. Didn't you know Naruto? Said Sakura. Sasuke's brother slaughtered their entire clan. He's the last of them. That's heavy, said Naruto, scratching his chin. That's the reason he's such a dick, said Shikamaru, laying on his back and watching the clouds from between the leaves. Well I hope he's okay, said Ino, looking over her shoulder into the classroom window above them. It's gotta suck being by yourself all the time. Tell you what, said Jiraiya. You guys meet me at that barbecue restaurant down the street from the academy tomorrow and I'll buy lunch for everyone to celebrate. If, that is, you can get Sasuke to come. Consider it your first mission as ninjas. Taoji's eyes suddenly lit up and his expression became serious. It was his favorite place in town. He couldn't miss the chance for a free meal. Shikamaru slapped him on the back. Don't drag him Taoji, he'll just fight back and you'll end up breaking things, said the lazy boy. Taoji slumped forward when he realized his best friend was right. I'll leave you guys to it, said Jiraiya. He then body flickered away. So what do we do? Said Kiba. He was answered when Naruto stood up and ran into the academy. His friends looked at each other and scrambled to their feet to follow him. When they got there, they were met with a terrifying sight. Naruto was squatting on Sasuke's desk, well, more like in his lunch. Sasuke's sandwich was crushed under Naruto's toes and the Uchiha was glaring daggers up at the blonde. Naruto had his face 2 inches from Sasuke's. What the fuck, grumbled Sasuke. Are you doing to my food? Fuck your food, Naruto croaked back. That just got Sasuke even angrier. I am going to murder you, Sasuke growled. I have a better idea, said Naruto. We go outside and we fight, one-on-one, no rules, jutsus and below the belts allowed. If you win, my dad treats you and the rest of the genin in our class to a free lunch tomorrow. I win, you treat us. Deal. Roared Sasuke, shoving Naruto off of the desk and storming outside. The genins looked on in horror as Sasuke bought the flat-out lie. Naruto ran up to his friends and brushed himself off. I can't believe that worked, he said with a grin as he followed Sasuke. Naruto, said Choji. Do you really expect to win? Nope, said Naruto, in a hushed whisper. They stopped walking as Naruto ran out the door to meet Sasuke in the field. Idiot. Most of them screamed. Except for Shino and Hinata. He just shook his head and she whimpered. Shikamaru rolled his eyes and opted for a grunted troublesome. Naruto and Sasuke faced each other in the ring, Naruto taking his crouched stance and Sasuke taking his own. Naruto then darted forward, running low to the ground, bringing out a kunai and lunging at his opponent. Sasuke dodged the kunai strike and pulled out his own kunai, the two of them dodging and weaving in between each other's attempted slashes. Naruto leapt up when Sasuke missed one and shot out a leg, nailing the Uchiha in the chin. Sasuke rolled back, absorbing the blow then jumping forward punching Naruto in the jaw. Naruto rolled with it and kicked Sasuke in the side, sending him staggering to his left. Naruto followed up with his Tatapa Jutsu to send Sasuke tumbling to the ground. Naruto then leapt above Sasuke, attempting a brutal axe kick to his head. Sasuke rolled out of the way and threw a kunai, which Naruto blocked with his own. Naruto took 3 steps forward and kicked Sasuke in the face, sending Sasuke even further back. Sasuke covered his bleeding nose and growled in frustration. No one could beat him, he was a genius. Sasuke dodged the next kick and punched Naruto in the face again. Naruto was stunned, giving Sasuke the opportunity to jump forward and deal a punishing combo, 2 more punches to the gut and a palm strike to the face. Naruto fell back onto the ground and nearly screamed when Sasuke drove a knee into his gut. Naruto grabbed Sasuke's shirt and tossed him off, jumping onto him and punching him a few times. Sasuke tossed Naruto off with his legs and rolled to his feet, giving Naruto a vicious roundhouse kick to the back of the head. Naruto stumbled forward and turned, doing a few hand seals and spewing a foul-smelling brown liquid from his lips, covering Sasuke. Sasuke tried to run toward him, but realized that the oil was heavy, slowing him down by clinging to his body and increasing his weight. When Sasuke got his bearings against the oil, he threw 3 shuriken. Naruto avoided the first 2, but the third is his shoulder, leaving a deep gash. Naruto cried out and grabbed his shoulder. Sasuke then ran up to the distracted Naruto and punched him in the stomach, hard. Naruto coughed and fell to his knees. "See you at lunch, loser," said Sasuke. He was stopped when Naruto grabbed his shirt and mumbled something. "What? That was," Naruto choked out, looking up at Sasuke and smiling. "A really good fight." Naruto stood up and spit out some blood and toad oil. He then grabbed Sasuke's shoulder and shook it. "Let's both get stronger," said Naruto. "And when we're Jounins, we'll fight even harder." Sasuke stared at Naruto for a few seconds before swatting him away. "Why did you really want to fight me?" he demanded. "No one deserves to be alone," said Naruto. "As ninjas, it's our job to grow stronger together, as a unit. That's what my dad says. If we don't stick together, then we don't deserve to wear these headbands. I just want to be a ninja so I can get revenge," said Sasuke. "At your revenge," said Naruto, in obvious pain. "When you get stronger. Let us help you get stronger." Sasuke stared at him and then looked at the other genins. He didn't look angry, like he usually did. He looked conflicted. "Just meet us at the barbecue place down the street tomorrow at noon," said Naruto. Sasuke looked back at Naruto and nodded. "Oh, by the way," said Naruto. "That oil is thick as hell. It takes 4 hours in a regular shower to get off. Thought I'd let you know." Naruto then laughed and ran as fast as he could. Sasuke was going to chase him, but the oil was still weighing him down. "See you tomorrow, Sasuke-kun," said Sakura and Ino, running off. Everyone else waved and left. Sasuke had to drag his oily, smelly feet home. It took him an hour. When Naruto got home, he was greeted by Shima, Fukasaku, Tsunade and Shizune. They were waiting for him with cake and a few gifts of congratulations. "So, Naruto boy," said Fukasaku, hopping on his surrogate grandson's shoulder. "Finally a ninja, I see." "Oh, Naruto boy," wept Shima. "He's becoming an adult. Stay away from those nasty women in the village. You're only 12 years old, do you hear me?" "I hear you, ma," Naruto laughed, sitting next to Shizune on the couch. "What are you guys doing here?" "We've decided to celebrate our little brat's graduation," Tsunade slurred, swinging an empty bottle of sake around her head. "Jiraiya-sama isn't here," said Shizune, giving Naruto a present with one hand and holding Taunton with the other. He had business with the Hokage. What they failed to mention was that Jiraiya was apprehending Mizuki, the Chunin instructor. Jiraiya's increased connections in the village helped him figure out that the sensei was actually a spy for Orochimaru. Thankfully, Jiraiya's presence in the village averted a potential disaster. Naruto happily opened his present to find a new robe, dark green with an orange lining on the inside and a black flame pattern. "Ninjas can't be going around in bright orange all the time," said Shizune. "This will help you blend into forest environments. I know you like orange, so I sewed in the inner lining." "Thanks, Shizune-nichan," he shouted, jumping on her to give her a hug. "Naruto boy," said Fukasaku, pulling out another present. It was a long box and very heavy. "This is a gift from Gamahiro. He couldn't make it himself, but he got one of the smaller toad smiths to do it for him." Naruto opened it to reveal a short sword. He unsheathed it slowly, the blade a dark obsidian color with a solid steel edge and the kanji for oil engraved in the hilt. The handle had a leather grip. "It's a chakra blade," said Fukasaku. "You can channel wind chakra into it to extend its reach or make it sharper. Your father will teach you how to use it properly when you are older, but I must implore you, Naruto boy, don't try until you have better chakra control, or you could kill yourself and others around you." Naruto smiled happily down at the blade, tracing his thumb over the symbol of Myoboku. He sheathed the blade and put it back in the box. "I won't touch it until Dad decides I'm ready," he said with a grin. "Thanks ma, pa, Shizune ni, Tsunade-bachan." They all smiled back at him, except for Tsunade, who tried to punch him in the head for the granny remark. Soon, Jiraiya returned with more booze and some more gifts. "Here kid," said Jiraiya, passing him a box. "Becoming a ninja means that you're a man now, so I want you to have these." Naruto opened the box to reveal a massive pile of vintage porno magazines. He looked up at the sage with teary eyes. "I love you dad," he cried, dropping the box and hugging him tightly around the waist. Jiraiya returned the hug, at least until Tsunade saw what was inside the box. I don't think Naruto boy enjoyed the sword as much as he did that box, said Fukasaku with exasperation lacing his voice. Needless to say, Jiraiya didn't eat any cake that night. His lips and jaw were too swollen. The next day, after a treatment from Shizune for his facial damage, Jiraiya and Naruto walked to the barbecue place. Everyone was waiting for them, surprisingly, with their parents. Jiraiya looked down at Naruto as though it were his fault. He didn't want to pay for 18 people. Shikamaru, Choji and Ino had their moms and dads. Sakura and her pink-haired mother were bickering over something. Hinata was with her father and sister, Shino's dad was there, Kiba was with his mother, and Sasuke was by himself. He was getting by however, making small talk with Shino. "Don't look at me like that," said Naruto. Gamakichi poked his head out of Naruto's orange robe. "I didn't know this would be a family affair." "Jiraiya-san," said Hiashi Hyuga. "My daughter seems to have been hanging around your son a bit lately. When she said she was coming here for lunch, I took it upon myself to gather the families that could attend this lunch. I want to help with the bill of course. I thought it suitable to celebrate their becoming of Genin. It is a great achievement, though I doubt Hinata has the motivation to do any better." The girl in question looked down, her cheeks red. Jiraiya cringed when Naruto interjected. "That's not fair," said Naruto with a look of general disapproval. "Hinata is really nice and she's a pretty good fighter. I think she'll do fine." Hiashi grunted and gazed at Naruto with scrutiny. Naruto cringed like Jiraiya and took a step back. "Don't look at me like that," said Naruto. "It's freaky as hell." Hiashi looked at Jiraiya, expecting discipline. "Don't look at me like that either," said Jiraiya, taking a step back. "It really is freaky." Hiashi shook his head and went inside, his daughters following closely. "Don't mind him Jiraiya-sama," said Chauza Akimichi, Choji's father. "He's always had a stick up his ass. Let's eat." The Akimichi men pounded their stomachs and crammed inside the restaurant. Chauza's wife, who was just as large as he was, shook her head and followed suit. Sakura and the remaining Ina Shikacho parents and Genins greeted Naruto and Jiraiya respectfully and headed inside. Shino and his father said nothing as they looked for somewhere to sit. "This isn't a bad spot," Sasuke said to Naruto, avoiding eye contact. "Dad picked it, and I guess it's Choji's favorite," said Naruto with a smile as they sat down next to each other. Lunch was anything but a formal affair. There was a lot of drinking, laughing, and general antics. Chauza and Choji constantly ordered more, which served to irritate Jiraiya and Hiashi. Hiashi spoke very little, only when addressed, and only commented on things about politics and world affairs. Ino's parents ran a flower shop when her father wasn't working for interrogation. Sakura's mother owned a small gift shop near the village gates. Shino and his father hardly spoke a word, only to deny an arm wrestling challenge from Naruto and a sumo match from Chauza. Shikaku Nara was in a good mood for the most part, except for when his wife was griping at him for drinking so much. He and his son had a lot of things to call troublesome that night. Sakura and Ino bickered off and on, and it nearly came to a food fight, which angered the Akimichis to the point of threats. Jiraiya and Naruto were merry, Naruto drinking some of Jiraiya's sake and Jiraiya telling stories about his and Naruto's adventures with the toads. Even Sasuke got into the swing of things, so to speak. He had a light smile for most of the night, the sight of an inebriated Naruto amusing him as the two of them bantered back and forth. All in all, it was a good night for everyone. All of the parents split the bill, saving Jiraiya's bank account and Hiashi's temper. After the festivities were over and everyone left for home, Sasuke approached Naruto. "Thanks dope," he said, only loud enough for Naruto to hear. "That was a good meal. I'll see you next week." Naruto nodded and waved to Sasuke as the last Uchiha walked away from him and Jiraiya. "Come on," said Jiraiya, putting an arm around Naruto. "Let's go sleep this off and hope the hangover isn't too debilitating." "Alright dad," said Naruto. The morning after the Genin and their families got together for their celebrations was not at all pleasant for Naruto. He had a wicked hangover from the sake he'd shared with his dad and it was not what he wanted to deal with that day. Add that to having to go to the academy for his ninja ID photo to be taken and he could just taste the shitty day awaiting him along with the bile rising in the back of his throat. After a breakfast of orange juice and some crackers he showered and got dressed, a mesh shirt and blue pants with the new robe Shizune had bought for him. He and Gamakichi left for the academy a few minutes later, careful not to wake Jiraiya, who was sleeping on the coffee table in front of the couch. They were already late and Naruto was in a very sour mood. He walked into the classroom where the Hokage, Iruka and a photographer were waiting. There was a blue backdrop behind a wooden chair. The Hokage and Iruka were at a table going through a list of names. "You're late Naruto-kun," said the Hokage, not looking up from his papers. "Sorry Hokage Jiji," said Naruto, flopping down in the chair and sighing. "Long night." "Yes, I can tell," said the old leader. "I won't tell Tsunade this time." As soon as the picture was taken, Naruto got up to leave. Suddenly, the no Hamaru assassination no jutsu, screamed a very shrill voice as a small child bolted into the room and threw a kunai in any random direction. It happened to head straight for Naruto, who swatted it away with his own kunai and punched the kid in the face. "Stop screaming, you little shit," he shouted, grabbing his head and moaning a second later. "Thank you, Naruto," said the Hokage. "I do believe you just prevented my assassination." Naruto rolled his eyes as a Jounin in sunglasses and a bandana ran in. "Honorable grandson," he screeched. Naruto kicked the Jounin in the shin. The Jounin shouted in pain and hopped around. "I said stop screaming, goddamn," he shouted, grabbing his head again. "Naruto," hissed Iruka. "That's the Hokage's grandson and his tutor. Stop assaulting important people." "Oh, sorry," said Naruto, helping the kid off of the floor. The child, who had brown hair, the oddest helmet Naruto had ever seen, a scarf and a yellow t-shirt, tried to punch Naruto, but Naruto blocked it and pushed him back down. "I said stop it. You can't tell me what to do," said Konohamaru, stamping his feet. Naruto croaked in irritation and looked at the Jounin. "Sorry for kicking you," said Naruto. "I'm not feeling too hot and I can't stand loud noises right now." "It's fine," said the Jounin Ibisu as he rubbed his knee. "Just remember, when you are addressing or assaulting, I should say, a superior." Naruto rolled his eyes and said goodbye to the Hokage, heading outside. Gamakichi poked his head out of the front of Naruto's robes. Apparently seeing Akamaru like that all the time just made the spot look appealing to him. "You okay?" asked the toad. "You don't look so well." Naruto nodded. He was fairly pale. Apparently alcohol just didn't agree with his system. He walked around town for a little while, trying to lose whoever it was tailing him. He knew someone was there, as they were rather noisy, cursed a bit, and were hiding under a tarp while lying against a fence. "Stop following me," Naruto screamed, throwing a kunai at the tarp, nailing it to the fence. "That's the wrong side of the tarp, you moron." Konohamaru came out from under the tarp sputtering, realizing that the side he was using to cover himself was the side that had the flag of the Land of Fire on it, not the fence pattern. Konohamaru yanked the kunai out of the fence and turned to face Naruto, holding it in an awkward battle stance. "If I beat someone strong like you," said Konohamaru, waving the kunai around, "I'll get to become Hokage." "I'm just a genin," said Naruto, rubbing his temples. "And becoming Hokage doesn't just mean beating everyone you don't like." "How do you become Hokage then, smart guy?" sneered the 7-year-old. Naruto thought about it for a second. "Well, my dad says the Hokage is chosen by the previous Hokage. He also has to be as skilled or close to as skilled as the previous Hokage. Not to mention he has to be a good leader and have a lot of experience in the field. Wait, why am I telling you this? Go away." Konohamaru threw the kunai at Naruto, who jumped over it with his superior leg strength and punched Konohamaru in the face again. "I said stop it, you little piece of shit. You can't just pick on me," said Konohamaru. "I'm the Hokage's grandson." "That's a great story," said Naruto. "My dad is the Hokage's old student. You don't hear me bragging." "Whoa," said Konohamaru. "Your dad is Tsunade." Naruto was completely silent. Even Gamakichi was at a loss for words. "You little idiot," shouted Naruto, prepared to throttle the kid. "Teach me," said Konohamaru. "What?" "From this point on," said Konohamaru with an excited gleam in his eye. "You're my boss. Now teach me some cool jutsus." Naruto rubbed his eyes. He was hungover and now a little kid had a man crush on him. "Come on," said Naruto, giving in for the sake of his headache. "I'll teach you my advanced henge." Konohamaru whooped, but Naruto covered his mouth. "Shut up." Naruto brought Konohamaru back to the apartment where Jiraiya was up and about, sipping coffee and looking through his telescope. "Hey Dad," said Naruto. "The Hokage's grandson is following me around, so I'ma teach him the sexy jutsu." "That's great," Jiraiya drawled, distracted by the sight of Sakura's mother in the hot springs. He grinned. That lady had a temper, he knew that from experiences. Fiery women were hot. He giggled at his terrible play on words. "Alright," said Naruto, guiding Konohamaru into his bedroom. "First, have you ever seen a naked woman?" Konohamaru shook his head rapidly. "Alright," said Naruto. "We'll start from scratch." He reached under his bed and pulled out his box of dirty magazines, tossing a few to Konohamaru. "Study those for about an hour," said Naruto. "Try and memorize every detail of their bodies, curves, bone structure, and lack of certain features." "How come they don't have?" "Because shut up," said Naruto, setting Gamakichi into his box. "Now study." With that, he left Konohamaru to it while he took a well-needed nap. "Naruto," called Jiraiya from the front room. "Why is there a naked fat chick in our bathroom?" Naruto rubbed his eyes and yawned, feeling much better. He got up and ran to see what all the fuss was about. He saw who he assumed was Konohamaru, checking himself out in the mirror. He changed into a very chunky woman. "Did I do it good, boss?" he asked, striking the most awkward pose Naruto or Jiraiya had ever seen. "You're getting there," said Naruto. "I had trouble in the beginning too. You just need to visualize better when you mold your chakra. I didn't realize you already knew the henge." "Ibisu-sensei taught me," said Konohamaru, returning to normal. "He's a jerk, but at least he teaches me a couple things." Naruto looked at his watch and saw that it was getting late. It was almost dinner time. "Come on, I'll walk you home," said Naruto. He knew where the Sarutobi compound was. "I'll come too," said Jiraiya, tying on his forehead protector. "We'll grab some ramen on the way back. I don't feel well enough to cook tonight." The three of them headed out of the apartment and went to the Sarutobi compound. When they were halfway there, Ibisu leapt down from a building. "There you are, honorable grandson," said Ibisu. "Thank you for finding him, Jiraiya-sama." "Don't thank me," said Jiraiya. "He was hanging out with Naruto all day." "Oh, it's you," said Ibisu coldly. "Come, honorable grandson. I don't want you hanging around and undesirable like him." "What the hell does that mean?" demanded Naruto before Jiraiya could say anything. Jiraiya watched Naruto and figured he'd let the kid stand up for himself. "I'm saying that a noble like the honorable grandson doesn't need a bad influence like you around. One who attacks people at random." Naruto crouched down and glared at Ibisu, a croaking noise emerging from his throat. Jiraiya rolled his eyes. Now he'd pissed Naruto off. "Listen, asshole," said Naruto. "I don't know what's so honorable about him. He's a brat with no manners, but as far as I'm concerned, he's a cooler guy than you are." "Thanks, boss," said Konohamaru proudly. "Don't call him that," snapped Ibisu. "Or what?" demanded Naruto. "You'll cry to the Hokage. You little," growled Ibisu, crouching down to Naruto's level and getting in his face. "What you gonna do about it?" "Wait, boss," said Konohamaru with a look of determination. "I'll defeat Ibisu-sensei and show him that you're the better teacher." "Huh?" Both Naruto and Ibisu turned to Konohamaru. Konohamaru's sexy jutsu. There was a big puff of smoke, and Konohamaru was replaced with the most stunning woman any of them had ever seen. All three Shinobi's jaws dropped as they looked over every curve of Konohamaru's incredible body, those firm breasts, that tight ass and those beautiful blue eyes under the cute shaggy mane of hair. They all passed out on the spot. "Oh crap," screeched Konohamaru, returning to normal. "I killed the boss. I killed Ibisu-sensei. I killed boss's dad." Konohamaru looked around and saw that the street was empty. He ran home so he wouldn't get in trouble for murdering three shinobi. The three of them woke up the next morning in Tsunade's clinic being treated for blood loss. Apparently they experienced such massive nosebleeds that they almost died. Ibisu left without looking Jiraiya or Naruto in the eyes. "What the hell happened?" asked Tsunade as Naruto and Jiraiya packed up to head home. "Konohamaru Sarutobi happened," they both said, walking out without another word. As soon as they were out of earshot, Jiraiya clamped a hand down on Naruto's shoulder. "That was a brilliant technique," said Jiraiya sagely. "You have found a talented disciple, Naruto-sensei." Naruto chuckled. "Thanks, Hiro-sensei," he said jokingly. "Do I still get ramen?" "Better," said Jiraiya. "I'll get you some ramen, and then we are going to practice some elemental manipulation with that sword of yours. You should also work on using shadow clones in combat." "That'll take forever," said Naruto. "I have to meet my new team in half a week." "That's why I taught you the shadow clone, you dunce," said Jiraiya. "Come on, I'll teach you how to train with clones. It's a little thing called collective memory." When Naruto arrived at the academy for team assignments, he was wearing his new green and blue robes, washed and pressed by Shizune for him. His chakra sword was tied to his waist along his lower back, so when he drew it, he would use it in a reverse grip. Jiraiya had gotten permission to take Naruto back to Myoboku for the week so Gamma Hero could teach him the basics of Kinjutsu. He had 10 shadow clones work with Gamma Hero, while 10 worked with Jiraiya on wind chakra manipulation. While Naruto had the capacity to make a small army, he needed to get used to the mental feedback from the clones. When he got home he was fairly competent with the sword and his chakra manipulation was becoming much more effective. The practice with multiple clones also assisted in his overall chakra control quite a bit. Working with Gamma Hero was interesting to say the least. He taught Naruto how to hold a sword and how to use it effectively in battle and had clones spar against each other. Naruto was quickly on his way to learning Toad-style Kinjutsu, which would work in tandem with his Toad Taijutsu. He liked to refer to the combined art as Crouching Lily. Jiraiya thought it sounded gay, but what did he know? Ma liked it. "Don't you remember? We built this village," he and Gamakichi sang together as he walked into the classroom. Gamakichi was once again perched on his head. "We built this village on ramen and dangu, we built this village." "Shut up, Naruto," said Iruka, looking over the team selections. "Take a seat and I'll call in the Jounin instructors." Naruto hopped onto the seat next to Kiba as usual and crouched, taking out his class notes for one last time. With the estimations he'd made and assistance from Jiraiya, he considered Hinata to have the highest chance of being the most fully developed woman in his class. The stereotypes were all there. Quiet, nervous, fainting tendencies and a constant blush. She was going to have a hell of a rack and he had 2,000 Ryos riding on it in a bet with Jiraiya. "Alright you guys," said Iruka as a bunch of Jounin piled in. "You will now be assigned your new senseis. You guys' teams are numbered by classroom, so in here we've got team 7, 8 and 10. Who's team 9? asked Sakura, her chin resting in her hand. They were class from last year. They're still Genin together so they got to keep their numbers. So, let's get this done. Team 8 with Kurina Yuhi is Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Abiram, and Hinata Hyuga. The three Genin walk down to meet their sensei, a stunningly beautiful woman with messy black hair, red eyes and an odd dress that looked like giant bandages covered in seals. Team 10 with Asuma Suratobi is Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara and Chouji Akamichi. They met with their sensei, who Naruto recognized as the Hokage's son. He had a thick chin-strap beard with a goatee and was smoking a cigarette. He was wearing the standard shinobi uniform for the village, though he also wore an odd sash under his belt. Team 7 with Kakashi Haddock is Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha. Yes. Cheered Sakura. Naruto nodded, accepting his team. Sakura was fun and had a fiery temper that he considered a bit sexy when she wasn't hitting him. Sasuke needed some work, but he felt that he could work with Sasuke if they both really tried. "Where's our sensei?" asked Sasuke. "It looks like he hasn't arrived yet," said Iruka, looking around. "I need to go speak with the Hokage, you guys just stick around until Kakashi gets here." The three Genin nodded and decided to sit together. Naruto chatted idly with Sakura about how exciting it was to finally be on a real ninja team. Sasuke was mostly silent but nodded when he agreed with something. After 3 hours, the novelty began to wear off. Naruto fell asleep at some point and Sakura was trying to strike up conversation with Sasuke, but he wasn't feeling very talkative. Suddenly, they heard footsteps. Naruto snapped to attention and shook the sleep out of his system, croaking irritably as the gray-haired shinobi with the face mask and covered eye walked into the room. "Hello class," said Kakashi with a cool tone of voice. "I'm your new sensei. Treat me well." "It's about time," shouted Sakura. "What the hell took you so long?" "I got lost on the road of life," said Kakashi. "They didn't buy it. So I'm stuck with you guys, eh? Meet me on the roof in 10 minutes. Then he body flickered away, leaving them to walk. When they got there, he was crouching on the top of the fence around the roof, reading a copy of Icha Icha Paradise. "You know that's gonna be a movie soon?" said Naruto, getting Kakashi's attention. "Really?" said Kakashi, leaning forward. "Yeah. They're doing the screenplay and they want Yuki Fujikaze as the female lead. I think she'd be perfect." "So, Jiraiya-sama lets you in on his writing?" asked Kakashi. "Are you kidding? That book is based off of my own research." Kakashi smiled, his eye turning upwards. "Well, we'll have to see the movie together then, won't we?" Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura sat down in front of Kakashi. "Why did you want us to meet here?" asked Sasuke. "Good question," said Kakashi. "I want us to get to know each other a bit. My first impression, I like you guys." That got a smile out of the Genin. "Now, tell me your likes and dislikes," he said with an eye smile. "Your dreams for the future and your hobbies." "Why don't you tell us first?" said Naruto. "You look a little suspicious." "Yeah, with your face all covered up," said Sakura. "Oh, me?" said Kakashi. "Well, let's see, I have no real desire to tell you my likes and dislikes. My dreams for the future, that's a good question. And I have lots of hobbies." "He only told us his name," said Sakura icily. "Your turn," said Kakashi. "Let's start with you on the right." "Me?" said Naruto. "Well, I like ramen and training with dad. And I like toads. I dislike the taste of bugs." "No taste," piped up Yamakichi from atop his head. "My dream is to become strong enough to protect the people I care about," he said with a grin. "Maybe even become the Hokage." "Interesting," Kakashi thought to himself. "My hobbies are research and training," he said with a wide smile and a thumb up. Kakashi shuddered from the memories of that pose. "Next," said the Scarecrow sensei. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha," said Sasuke. "I don't really like anything and I dislike a lot of things. My dream, well, more of an ambition, is to resurrect my clan and kill a certain man." "So cool," thought Sakura. "You'd better not mean me," said Naruto. "Shut up," said Sasuke with a roll of his eyes. "I'm Sakura Haruno," said the violent pinkette. "I like." She blushed and looked at Sasuke. "Well, the person I like." Her blush darkened. "My plans for the future." She blushed even darker. "Oh, and I dislike Naruto's pervy dad." Naruto busted up laughing. "Well, now that that's out of the way," said Kakashi, Sakura's information unsettling him a bit. "Do you have any questions?" "Now that you're our sensei," said Naruto. "What are our duties?" "Ah," said Kakashi, covering his eye. "About that." "What?" asked Sakura uneasily. Sasuke just stared at his sensei. "Tomorrow, we're going to have an activity with just the 4 of us," he said, getting the 3 of them to lean forward. "Survival training. Sounds like fun," said Naruto. "But didn't we learn enough in the academy?" "This isn't normal training," said Kakashi. "I'm going to be your opponent." "What do you mean?" asked Naruto, looking up at Gamakichi questioningly. The toad shrugged. "Well, the funny thing is," said Kakashi. Of the 27 genin that graduated from the academy, only 9 are going to go on to be actual genin. The rest will be sent back to the academy, and this training has a 66% failure rate. The genin all looked at each other and gulped nervously, which made Kakashi laugh. "I knew you guys would freak out," he said with his eye smile. "So what are we supposed to do?" asked Naruto, agitation showing all over him, bouncing on his toes and wringing his hands. "Did we come this way all for nothing?" "Of course not," said Kakashi. "The exam was just to see who had what it took to take this next test." Naruto sighed and nodded. That made him feel a little better, but he couldn't say the same for Sakura, and with Sasuke he couldn't tell. "Tomorrow you will be showing your true skills on the battlefield," said Kakashi, passing out papers. "Bring all of your tools and don't eat breakfast because you'll just end up throwing up. See you at 6 am. When Jiraiya got home that night from some intelligence gathering, he swiftly dodged a kick in the head and blocked a punch. He punched his attacker in the stomach, but the enemy vanished in a puff of smoke. 2 more ninjas appeared in front of him, and he quickly dispelled them with swift kicks, then taking out another behind him. Then something landed on his shoulders, and he felt a blade press against his neck. "Good job, Naruto," he said, flicking on the lights. "If I were a low-level chunin I would have been toast." Naruto didn't take the compliment and punched Jiraiya in the top of the head. "Ow. Fucking brat," shouted the Toad Sage, dispelling the clone on his shoulders, seeing the real Naruto sitting cross-legged on the couch. "You didn't tell me there was another test," shouted Naruto indignantly. "Me either," shouted Gamakichi from the coffee table. "Shut up, Gamakichi," they both said. "I'm not allowed to tell you about that test," said Jiraiya. "It's against the rules. I got Kakashi as my sensei." "How fucked am I?" asked Naruto. "Kakashi, eh?" said Jiraiya. "His test is so hardcore that no genin team before has beaten it." Naruto gulped. "Don't eat breakfast," said Jiraiya. "But you should pack a lunch. And put it in a ceiling scroll." Naruto thought about that momentarily before getting an idea and summoning Shima. "Oh, hello Naruto boy," she said with a happy smile. "What can I do for you?" "Hey ma," said Naruto. "Can you make me the best possible bento lunch you can? I need it for tomorrow." Shima thought about it and smiled. "Of course Naruto boy. Let's go to the market. But first, let's con some coin from Jiraiya boy." Team 7 arrived at the designated training field at 6 am, like they were supposed to, but Kakashi was nowhere to be seen. Naruto laid against a wooden post and went to sleep, telling Sakura to wake him when Kakashi got there. The Jounin in question didn't arrive until 3 hours later. They were in training ground 3. There was a view of mountains in the landscape and a large and deep river with forests on both sides of it. There was a glade and in its center were 3 stumps lined side by side. Below there was a memorial of some kind with a polished kunai-shaped structure on top. Sakura kicked Naruto in the leg until he was awake. "Hey Kakashi-sensei," said Naruto, yawning and stretching. "Lost on the road of life again?" "Nah," said Kakashi, setting a clock on a tree stump and pressing the mechanism on top. "There, it's set for noon." He reached into his pocket and pulled out 2 small bells. "See these bells? You have until noon to get them from me or you fail. Whoever doesn't get a bell by noon gets no lunch." Dad was right, thought Naruto, his hand going to a pouch he kept underneath his robes. Under his robes is where he kept his ninja equipment like kunai, shuriken and sealing scrolls. He also kept some ninja wire handy for traps. "I won't only tie you to one of those stumps over there, but I'll also eat right in front of you. Use any weapons you see fit because you need to be coming at me with the intent to kill. There are only 2 bells, so one of you will definitely fail this test. But won't you be in danger?" asked Sakura. Naruto reached into his kunai pouch in an instant and prepared to throw it at Kakashi, but before he could blink, the Jounin was gone. He then felt a hand grab his wrist and point his own kunai at the back of his neck, his other hand pressing the back of his head forward to keep him from moving. "I didn't say start," said Kakashi. "But it's good you know what killing intent means." He released Naruto and snapped his fingers. "Oh," he said, and they darted off in different directions, hiding in the trees. "I didn't even see him move," Sakura thought to herself from under a bush. "So that's a Jounin," thought Sasuke. "So, they know that hiding is the most important part of being a shinobi," thought Kakashi. "They've hidden well." "Hey asshole," shouted Naruto from on top of a stump. "I spoke too soon," said Kakashi, turning to face his pint-sized opponent. "Idiot," roared Sakura and Sasuke in their minds. Naruto was squatting on the wooden stump, not making a move. He and Kakashi stared at each other. The shuriken were easily avoided by Kakashi, and he expected Naruto to charge him head-on as he was, but was surprised when Naruto leapt over him, doing a front flip. He was approaching the ground upside down and running through hand seals. "Gyuutin. Diatapa," he yelled, blowing a large gust of wind from his lips. He put more chakra into it than Kakashi expected, and the Jounin had to stand his ground against the wind. "This chakra is amazing," thought Kakashi. "But he's still too slow." Kakashi stood up straight when the wind stopped and Naruto landed on one hand, crossing his legs in the upside down position. "You won't fight back?" asked Naruto. "I have no reason to," said Kakashi. "You aren't anywhere close to my level." "We'll see," said Naruto, flipping forward and charging for a taijutsu battle. "Taijutsu, eh?" said Kakashi. "I'll teach you a few things." Kakashi blocked the first kick with minimal effort and started sidestepping the blonde's attacks. He blocked several more kicks with the metal plates on his gloves. Naruto was pretty good. He had great leg strength and was a very competent fighter. Jiraiya was a good teacher. Naruto leapt up for an axe kick which Kakashi caught and tossed him away. Naruto caught himself and started doing hand signs again. "This is boring," said Kakashi, appearing behind Naruto, crouching low and doing the tiger seal. "No way," whispered Sasuke from his hiding spot in the trees. "He's going to do a fire jutsu. Naruto's gonna die." Sakura leapt up from her spot to scream at Naruto to avoid the attack, but a hand clasped over her mouth and dragged her into the bushes. "Hanahagakure ancient taijutsu supreme technique," shouted Kakashi, shoving his fingers into Naruto's rear end. 1,000 years of pain. Naruto's eyes bugged out of his head and he was sent flying into the air screaming in discomfort. "What the fuck was that?" whispered Sasuke. Then both he and Kakashi went wide-eyed when Naruto became nothing more than a puff of smoke. There was no log, so it wasn't a replacement, and if it was a Bunshin, the attack would have passed right through. What the fuck was that? Suddenly, about 20 Narutos came charging out of the trees, running at Kakashi with the obvious intent to do him some harm. Kakashi's eye became serious and he reached into his pocket, pulling out his book, Icha Paradise. He opened it to the latest page and began reading. When the first Naruto got to him, his free hand shot out and punched it, dispelling the clone, his eye never leaving the page. One after another, Naruto was defeated in one blow as Kakashi blocked, countered and struck each one. Naruto's crouching lily was good, but not Kakashi good apparently. Kakashi ducked under two Fuma shuriken as they sped at him. More and more Narutos poured out of the trees, but after 12 of them were defeated, they stopped and merely stared at Kakashi. "So," said the Jounin. "Giving up yet?" "Nah," said one of the Narutos, all of them crouching to the ground and staring at their sensei. "Just biding my time. May I ask why?" "I'd prefer it if you didn't. Suit yourself." Then Kakashi leapt into action, going on the offensive as the Naruto clones went into full defensive retreat. He still didn't look up from his book. Sasuke was watching the fight with fascination and jumped when someone tapped him on the shoulder. He turned and saw Naruto and Sakura there looking at him. "What the fuck is going on?" the Uchiha demanded. "That's the shadow clone technique, remember?" said Naruto. "I used it in the Genin exams." Sasuke remembered the prank Naruto had pulled on the senseis and nodded. "So what are you doing here?" "I brought lunch," said Naruto. "I think we all know by now that he tricked us into not eating so we would be tired for the test, so I had my mom make us the tastiest and most filling stuff she could." He passed them both a bento box and opened his own. It was an assortment of sugar-coated goodies and Naruto's to keep his energy up while the shadow clones fought for them. Sasuke's had some sweets in there, as well as a large helping of sushi and onigiri. Knowing Sakura was on a diet according to Naruto, Sakura's was filled with an assortment of fruits and vegetables. "I'm okay," said Sasuke, pushing away the box. "I don't need your handouts." "Come on team," croaked Naruto. "We need to keep our strength up. I'll be fine on my own." "That's not what this is about," said Naruto, Sasuke's indifference getting on his nerves. The memories of his clones being crushed so badly with each passing moment was just stressing him out more. "If we eat, then we'll be able to fight better," he said, shoving the box at Sasuke. "I don't care about getting the bell. It's all a trick." Sasuke shot him a suspicious look. "A trick? What do you mean?" "I mean, he wants us to fight amongst ourselves and work separately. If we just go in by ourselves the whole time and don't work together, we're gonna fail." Sasuke stared at Naruto for a good minute and a half before opening his box and separating the chopsticks inside. "Thank you Naruto," said Sakura. "But how did you know he tricked us? How did you know to bring us lunch?" "I did some intel gathering," said Naruto with a grin. "What do you mean?" asked Sasuke as he dug into his food reluctantly. He hadn't realized how famished he was from the lack of breakfast. "The night before." "So Naruto boy," said Shima. "Why do you need me to make you lunch all of a sudden?" Naruto and Shima were running through the market, the toad on his shoulder as they ran around grabbing ingredients. "I'm taking a test with my new team tomorrow," he said. "The Jounin said not to eat breakfast because we'll throw up, but if I have something to eat in the field, I might be more prepared." "Ah," said Shima. "The bell test." "What?" asked Naruto, turning to Shima. "It's an old Konoha tradition," she said absent-mindedly, hopping off of his shoulder to browse the vegetables. "They don't let you eat so you go hungry during the test. It makes everybody moody so they are less likely to work together, not because the test is too." She clamped her mouth shut when she realized that she'd just let the cat out of the bag. Naruto gaped at her with a loose jaw and a look of shock on his face, as he just figured out what no genin had in the history of Konoha. "Hey ma," he said. "If you make 2 more bentos, another tasty one and one with good stuff like fruits and veggies, I won't tell anyone that you broke the rules." Shima stared at him and nodded, already ashamed for being such a blabbermouth. "Alright," he said. "I'll meet you back at the house ma." And with that he ran off. A few minutes later, Iruka Yamino was awoken from his wonderful nap by banging on his door. He opened it to find Naruto staring up at him. "Oh hey Naruto," he said, yawning. "What's up? What's the bell test?" demanded Naruto. "What?" hissed Iruka. Naruto grabbed his shirt collar and forced Iruka down to his level. "I need information, and you're going to give it to me. What has gotten into you?" demanded the teacher. "We'll call it a craving for knowledge," said another Naruto, as Iruka realized he was surrounded by shadow clones who were pointing swords at his neck. Iruka rolled his eyes. "What do you want to know?" "Wait, so the whole thing is for us to work together?" said Sasuke. The stuff Naruto had been preaching to him before seemed to have some merit after all. "I can't believe this," said Sakura through a mouthful of grapes. "So what do we do?" "I've got 10 more clones out there trying to fight Kakashi-sensei," said Naruto. "I have a plan then," said Sasuke, leaning close to them. "Naruto, you said that oil is flammable." "Yup," Naruto said. "Good. Let's get to work then." Kakashi finished off another clone and another until there were only 8 left in front of him. He was about to move in again when he felt one latch onto him and slap a paper tag onto his chest. "An explosive tag," gasped Kakashi, peeling off the tag quickly and doing a Kawarimi jutsu with one of the Naruto clones. He jumped into a tree and waited, but no explosion came. "I can't believe they fooled me with a simple piece of paper. He even managed to sneak up on me. This Naruto kid is dangerous, but I've yet to see either of the others." He suddenly heard a noise and turned around to see both Naruto and Sasuke jump out of the bushes, running through hand signs at the same time. "Don't oil bullet!" shouted Naruto, spitting the thick substance at Kakashi. "Pain! Nkakik no jutsu!" shouted Sasuke, spitting a moderately sized fireball at the glob of oil. Kakashi leapt out of the way as the jutsus collided, creating a massive flaming explosion that he just barely avoided. "I think they pass," said Kakashi with a look of surprise in his eye. "But where is Sakura?" Naruto and Sasuke landed, throwing shuriken and kunai at Kakashi. Kakashi avoided it and ran at them, knowing that just telling them to stop wouldn't end it. They would likely perceive it as a trick and fight harder. He needed to defeat them. He was surprised when they grinned and leapt back into the trees. Kakashi burst into the forest, but Naruto and Sasuke were waiting along with the remaining Naruto clones. The clones blocked his path, but he killed them swiftly, not seeing Naruto and Sasuke running past him with a wire in their hands. The wire caught on Kakashi's ankle, making him stumble forward. He then drove himself to a stop when a large log came swinging down at him. He leapt over it and ran across it, only to be met with a very determined-looking Sasuke. Sasuke slashed at him with a kunai, Kakashi pulling out his own and stowing away his book as he began to duel the last Uchiha atop the swinging log. They clashed kunai repeatedly, blocking and dodging blows. Kakashi had to admit, Sasuke was talented. His feints were solid, and so was his footwork. He performed a leg sweep which sent Sasuke tumbling off of the log, but as soon as he stood back up, he had to block a blow from Naruto. Naruto stood upon the log, his footing more steady than Sasuke's was. Kakashi could tell that he was gripping the log with chakra. Naruto unsheathed his chakra sword in a reverse grip and took his crouched stance. "You can't defeat me with a simple sword," said Kakashi. "There's nothing simple about it," Naruto shouted, coating the blade in wind chakra. Kakashi's eye widened further. This kid was full of surprises. Kakashi had fought Asuma Sarutobi and plenty of wind users before, and he knew that if he got hit or tried to block, that was it. Naruto began slashing methodically at Kakashi, the Jounin instructor bobbing and weaving along the surface of the log. When one slash got too close for comfort, he slid under the log and hung upside down. He was unsurprised when Naruto did the exact same thing and still came at him, and it became an upside-down battle. Kakashi took a step back from one sword slice and ducked as 2 clones with their own chakra-covered swords came at him from both sides. He dropped off of the log and landed in a crouching position, surrounded by 3 Narutos. They began attacking, and Kakashi simply ducked and weaved around them, not fighting back at all. Kakashi then jumped over 2 leg sweeps and shot his legs out to both sides, finishing the clones easily. Kakashi landed and felt a wire wrap around his feet. Sasuke had appeared and used a kunai as a weight to sling the wire around his legs. Sasuke yanked the wire and it caused Kakashi's legs to slam closed. He maintained perfect balance however. Kakashi ducked under a sword slash and used his kunai to cut the wire. Bad idea as it triggered a mechanism to send 2 more logs hurtling towards him, aiming to crush him. He shot his palms out on either side and grunted, catching the logs. It hurt like hell, but he was relatively unharmed. "What the hell are you?" panted Naruto, the chakra on his sword dimming to nothing. "The Jounin," said Kakashi, running forward and planting the toes of his sandal in Naruto's face, sending him flying into a tree. Sasuke jumped out of the trees, and Kakashi punched him in the stomach when he came down to stab the masked Jounin. Sasuke tumbled to the ground and staggered to his feet. Kakashi looked around and spotted a flash of pink. He'd caught Sakura red-handed as she tried to arm another trap for him. He lunged at her. "I've got you," he roared. He grabbed her by the throat and spun around, holding her in a chokehold and pushing a kunai into her neck. It was time for the next lesson. Naruto and Sasuke stopped abruptly, staring at Kakashi with wide eyes. "You couldn't just give up, could you?" he said harshly. He pressed the kunai harder into her neck and she whimpered in pain. "You had to drag this out." "Kakashi-sensei," choked Naruto. "Don't do it." He dug his kunai into her neck a bit further. "It's going to take a lot more than that to get me to. I'll tell you who Ricardo's true identity is if you go any further," growled Naruto. Kakashi stopped. "You wouldn't dare." "I would. I helped write that Icha paradise you have in your pocket there. I'll spoil the ending if you harm her anymore." Kakashi stared at the blonde for a few seconds before setting Sakura on the ground. He looked in between the three with a critical eye for several moments before he nodded. "You pass." Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke sat in front of the memorial statue with Kakashi, who was standing in front of it. "You guys surprised me today," he said. "Naruto, you went behind everyone's back to find out what was really going on because of a subtle hint left to you. Any other genin probably wouldn't have picked up that Jiraiya was telling you the no breakfast rule was bull and just packed a lunch for after the test. You knew you couldn't take my orders at face value and, well, you ended up finding out about my ruse on accident. You were preparing for a worst-case scenario. That shows that you know that information is vital, and if you just follow orders blindly it could get you killed. You also used your communication skills very effectively to get the team to act as a group rather than individuals. Good work. Sasuke, you had a reputation in the academy for shunning others and refusing to accept any help. You were a loner the whole time, and you were ready to face the ninja world on your own, rejecting any team members for your own goals. But you saw that working with Naruto and Sakura was the only way to finish this test and put aside your pride for a few hours to get through it together. Your planning skills in the heat of the moment really came through and you coordinated the team like an expert. Keep that up and I see a squad of your own in the future. Sakura, your behind-the-scenes action today was very smart and your participation as a support member of the team was invaluable. You had a reputation in the academy for thinking of boys over your career. You were easily distracted and hard to get along with. But you showed me today that you are a good team player when you want to be, and a supportive team member is better than a useless one. I think you would do well as a Genjutsu user or a medical nin, whichever you are more suited to, rather than a direct combatant. You didn't even set off all of my traps," Sakura pouted. Kakashi laughed and scratched the back of his head. "I have some ideas on things that you guys need to work on individually and we'll get to that another time, but for now, you guys make a good team and that's the only thing that matters today." The genin smiled at the praise. Kakashi nodded and turned to look at the monument. "You guys see this monument?" he asked. "What is it, Kakashi-sensei?" Naruto asked. "It's a monument to the heroes of this village," he said. "Heroes that died for our village. My best friend's name is carved onto here." The three genin listened to their sensei quietly as he continued. "I had to learn this lesson the hard way," he said. "Those who don't follow the rules are trash." Naruto frowned at that. "But those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash. You guys are now genin of the leaf. I'm proud to call you my students." Naruto grinned broadly and punched Sasuke in the shoulder. Sasuke rolled his eyes and smiled slightly. Sakura began to cry into her dress, the moment finally getting to her. "Starting tomorrow," said Kakashi. "We'll begin our duties as Konoha ninja. Let's go eat. Can we get ramen at Ichiraku's?" asked Naruto happily. "Sure," said Kakashi. "It's on me this time." With that, they walked into town, Naruto whooping and hollering for a bit before he stopped cold. "Oh shit," he shouted. "What?" asked Kakashi. "I left Iruka-sensei tied to a fucking chair." After they had dinner together, Team 7 said their goodbyes and parted ways. Naruto was on his way home when he was stopped by Sasuke. "Dope," said Sasuke, coming up behind his teammate. "What's up?" said Naruto, turning to face him. "You were right," said Sasuke. "So thanks." "No problem," said Naruto, waving it off. "But, I think I should tell you, and I'll tell Sakura later," but Sasuke paused and looked up into the sky. "What is it?" "There's a man," said Sasuke, looking over at Naruto darkly. "A man I need to kill. If I ever want to revive my clan, that man must die." Naruto nodded slowly, absorbing the information. Sasuke was very determined. "I need you to help me get stronger," said Sasuke. "So that one day, I can kill that man and bring glory to my clan." Naruto was quiet for a moment before nodding. "I don't know why that guy needs to die," said Naruto. But it's none of my business right now. I'll help you get stronger, Sasuke. But I can't promise you revenge. I won't help you there. Sasuke nodded and turned around, walking away. That's all I need from you, Naruto, he said while he remained in earshot. Our team is just a means to an end for me. Just don't get in my way. Naruto said nothing as he turned around and headed home. When Naruto got home, he was by himself. Jiraiya was out on a mission for the village and Naruto was on his own for the week. He was surprised to see Fukasaku waiting for him, watching a movie on their little television and eating a bowl of crickets with Gamakichi. "Hello Naruto boy," said Fukasaku. "You're still wearing that headband, so I assume you passed." "Yup," said Naruto happily, flopping down on the couch. "What brings you here, pa?" "Well, I was watching this fascinating movie about samurai with light swords in space. The one in the helmet with the breathing problem is quite imposing. Anyway, since your father knew you would pass, he wanted me to teach you some new jutsus." "Really?" said Naruto with a grin of interest on his face. "What kind?" "Well Naruto boy," said Fukasaku, pausing the movie and turning to face him. "Like you, I am also a wind release user and I happen to know quite a few jutsus. I also use water release, so I want to teach you that affinity as well." "Awesome," said Naruto. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow Naruto boy," said Fukasaku. "When do you have to meet your team tomorrow?" "Not until 10 in the morning," said Naruto. "We're meeting at the Hokage Tower for our first mission." "Good, then we will go early and start on your training. For now, let's have dinner and finish this movie, I'm quite taken with it." Naruto and Fukasaku were up before the sun, eating an early breakfast and jogging to the training grounds. Fukasaku had Naruto split into 20 clones and practice 2 wind techniques, the Futen Kami Arashi, or the godly wind from the mountains, a huge vortex of wind blasted from Naruto's mouth and palms that could tear the bark off of trees when he got it right, and the wind cutter, which created a blade of wind from his hand that could cut through solid steel if done correctly. The clones practiced for hours, often wearing themselves out and dispelling, and Naruto himself had to create more. The real Naruto sat next to Fukasaku and Gamakichi in front of the monument and meditated. Fukasaku called off the clones at 7 in the morning and had Naruto dispel the clones one at a time to reduce any mental fatigue. Then he had Naruto try them out himself against a tree in the woods. Naruto went through the hand signs and it seemed that his clone training paid off as his vortex and blade were strong but not perfected. That would take a few more days. Next, Fukasaku summoned 3 toads, about Gama's size, with an assortment of weapons strapped to their backs. One was red, another was green and the last was orange and they all had blue underbellies and faces. "Naruto boy," said Fukasaku. "These are Hashin, Nikibi and Itami. They are known on Mount Myoboku as the Tatakai no Hikageru. They will be your Kenjutsu sparring partners." "I made that sword you know," said Hashin in a gruff croak. "Fine work I might add." "You liar," said Itami, a female toad, pulling out her sword. "We made that together." "And I helped," said Nikibi with a dumb smile. Naruto laughed at their argument and thanked them for their hard work. "No worries," said Hashin, blocking a slash from Itami. "You can summon us anytime for battle." "Thanks," said Naruto, pulling out his sword. "So, we gonna spar?" "You're Naruto boy," said Fukasaku. "Make 3 clones and have them spar. You shall continue to meditate with me." "Fine," whined Naruto, making 3 clones and sitting with Fukasaku. The toads showed the clones a bit more on proper sword work and gave them each a one-on-one lesson on different ways to deal with different opponents. The spars were simple enough, Naruto would attack, they would block, and they would go on a return offensive, expecting him to block. If they broke through his defense and could have killed the clone, they merely tapped it and told it what it did wrong. This went on for another 2 hours, and at 9, Fukasaku dismissed the Tatakai no Hikageru. "Good work today," said Fukasaku, pulling out 2 boxes containing a light snack for the both of them. Naruto enjoyed some apple slices, while Fukasaku munched on some fried caterpillars. "I think you should have those jutsus as well as the water jutsu I'll be teaching you down by the day after tomorrow." Naruto nodded and looked at the time. "Alright pa," said Naruto, getting up and brushing himself off. "I need to get home, take a quick shower and meet up with my team." "Good idea," said Fukasaku. "I will wait for you at the apartment." "Want to come on my first mission with me Gamakichi?" asked Naruto excitedly. "Hell yeah," said the little toad. Naruto grabbed Gamakichi and ran home as fast as his legs could carry him, leaving Fukasaku staring after the dust cloud with a frown. "So impatient," said the sage as he went back to his snack. When Naruto got home that day he was covered in scratches and bite marks. Gamakichi was clinging to his hair and applying adhesive bandages to his partner's face. "My first mission sucked," shouted Naruto, making Fukasaku jump from his spot on the couch. "Naruto boy. I'm trying to watch this. Oh, what happened?" "The daimyo was visiting the village," said Naruto, dragging his feet to the couch, "and his wife's cat got loose. Again. My mission was to catch it." "I thought you'd fraud a biju," said Fukasaku, going to get a first aid kit. "That suck," said Naruto, flopping down while Fukasaku dabbed at his cuts with alcohol and a cotton ball. "Yes, I know," said Fukasaku. "You should be healed in a few moments. Your injuries always seem to recover far faster than other children's." "Why is that, pa?" asked Naruto, glancing at the toad, who stuttered before coming up with an excuse. "It runs in the family," he said. Jiraiya boy recovered quickly in his youth as well. It was a blatant lie, but Naruto bought it. "That makes sense," said Naruto. Fukasaku sighed. "Tomorrow we will do a bit more training and then you can be on your way to do more missions. I hope all the missions aren't like that." Unfortunately they were. Over the next month, Naruto and his team got nothing but missions that equated to either household chores or running errands. At one point they had to help rebuild a part of the Akamichi compound that was destroyed when two of the clansmen got in a fight over a fried dumpling at dinner. Naruto wasn't allowed to use his clones because Kakashi said this was a team-building exercise. Other missions included walking the Inuzuka clan's dogs, which seemed to despise Naruto for some reason. He got bitten quite a bit. One old lady needed her carpets replaced with hardwood flooring because her cats were not box-trained. The house smelled of mold, piss and death. Sakura refused to step foot inside there, so Naruto and Sasuke removed the carpet. When they hauled out giant rolls of the moldy, disgusting carpet, they saw her sitting outside doing her makeup. Naruto dumped his carpet on her head, top side down. She smelled for days, and the lumps on his head didn't recede for a week. Jiraiya got home a few days late and made up for it by assisting in Naruto's training with Fukasaku. He gave Naruto tips and showed him the proper breathing techniques for wind jutsus, which in turn boosted his overall power. When he saw that Naruto's taijutsu and kinjutsu had increased dramatically, he bought Naruto some leg weights, which slowed him down, but would overall increase his power. A month later, Jiraiya decided to teach him Fuinjutsu. "What's Fuinjutsu?" asked Naruto. He and his father were in their apartment, sitting across from each other at the kitchen table. Jiraiya leaned forward and showed Naruto a sealing scroll. "Fuinjutsu is the art of sealing," said Jiraiya. "It's been passed down for generations, and your namesake, Uzumaki, makes you the ideal candidate for sealing mastery." "My namesake?" asked Naruto. Jiraiya leaned back. He didn't want to tell Naruto that he was adopted yet. He knew he should, now that Naruto was nearing that age, but when he tried, he couldn't do it. Jiraiya was planning on telling him now, and he tried. He really did. But he didn't have the heart for it. "I'm sorry, Minato," thought Jiraiya. "But he's my son. I don't want to lose him." "Your mother was a member of the great clan Uzumaki," said Jiraiya, cringing internally for what he was about to do. "And she taught me her clan's secrets." "My mom?" asked Naruto, his eyes going wide. "Of course," said Jiraiya. "Did you think you came from a toad?" "I was suspicious," said Naruto. "Idiot," said Jiraiya, rolling his eyes. "Anyway, the clan is extinct now, it was wiped out in the Second Shinobi War. The swirl pattern you see on Konoha uniforms is the Uzumaki clan symbol. They were a great ally to Konoha and had their own village. Hidden Whirlpool. Your mom and the first Hokage's wife were the only surviving members. Now you are the only survivor of that clan." Naruto nodded. "What was my mom like?" he asked a bit quietly. Jiraiya sighed and scratched his chin. "She was a lot like you, kid," said Jiraiya. "A hell of a temper, prone to shouting when anything annoyed her. Long red hair, quite beautiful. You have her face." Jiraiya went into his room and reached into his dresser with a photo album in it. He looked through it until he found a picture of Kushina and Tsunade standing in front of the hospital. Kushina was pregnant in the picture. "This is her," he said with a sad smile. "She was really pretty," said Naruto, grinning up at Jiraiya. "Yeah, she was," said Jiraiya, handing it to him. "You keep it, Naruto." "Thanks, Dad," said Naruto, gazing down at the picture with a sad smile of his own. "So what are you going to teach me about sealing?" "For now," said Jiraiya, clearing his throat. "I'm gonna teach you how to make explosive tags and sealing scrolls of your own, so you can save money. If you make your own, you won't have to buy them anymore, just the ink, brushes and paper." And with that, Naruto's instruction in sealing began.